Hey guys, tonight we step into the splintered shoes of someone no one wanted to be. The air smells like old sweat, hot iron, and something worse. You're standing on a creaking wooden platform, holding a sword that's far too heavy for comfort. Below you, the crowd murmurs, waiting for blood. You can feel the eyes, the judgment, the anticipation. A man kneels in front of you, trembling. You're told this is justice. You're told this is duty. But nothing about it feels human. You are the medieval executioner, and you probably won't survive this. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And tell me in the comments, what time is it where you are, and where are you listening from? Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You're a young man, barely more than a boy, really, and already your name is whispered with fear. They don't call you by your given name anymore. You're just him, that one. The Blade. No one greets you at the market. Children stop their play and vanish when you walk down the lane. Your house, which once stood at the center of the village, now seems to drift toward the outskirts, like even the earth itself doesn't want you too close. Your job's simple on paper, carry out executions, but that's like saying a knight just holds a sword. Your reality is messy, bloody, lonely. You're not a knight, not a soldier, not even a common laborer. You're a tool, a reminder, the sharp end of the law, and today is your first day on the scaffold. You wake early, not because of duty, but because you barely slept. The cot you lay on is straw-stuffed and crawling with regret, and fleas. You rise, wash your face in cold water, and dress in the same clothes you wore yesterday. You grab your hood, the black cloth that turns you from a man into a dumb monster, and sling it over your shoulder like a snake that's learned to coil. Outside, the sky is cloudy, not dramatic storm clouds, just gray and indifferent, like the world is as bored of justice as you are afraid of it. You trudge toward the platform, avoiding eyes. Not that anyone would look at you. You've become invisible in the most visible job in town. The guards nod but say nothing. They don't offer a smile. One hands you a blade, polished, sharpened, tested. You almost expect it to be warm from the last job, but it's cold, sterile, hungry. You climb the steps. Wooden planks groan beneath your boots. You glance down. Roughly 100 villagers gathered. Some hold children. Others lean forward like they're at a puppet show. There's a strange excitement in the air. A tension that tastes metallic, like blood in your mouth before the first drop even falls. Then comes the condemned man. He's older than you. His beard is gray, his eyes are empty. He stumbles as they push him forward, but no one helps him up. Why would they? He's a thief, they say, took a loaf of bread and a necklace from the chapel. Or maybe just the necklace. Historians still argue whether the peasant justice system ever truly separated fact from rumor. He kneels. Doesn't beg. Doesn't cry. Just waits, and you freeze for a second. You forget what to do. The crowd murmurs louder. Someone coughs. A child cries. You blink, lift the sword, and you miss. It doesn't take the head clean off. It slices wrong. The blade catches. The man screams. You try again, and finally it's over. But it's not, because from this day on that scream will follow you. In dreams, in silences, in the quiet pauses between one heartbeat and the next. When you return home, no one is waiting. You drop the sword outside your door like it's diseased. Inside, your dog won't come near you. Not even the animals can forget what you are now. And yet you did your job. Tomorrow they'll ask you to do it again. You didn't ask for this. There wasn't a sign-up sheet, no grand ceremony. No eager boyhood dream of growing up to be the one swinging the blade. No. You were chosen the way a rat gets noticed. Unwanted, unavoidable, and because someone else ran off. Your father was the last executioner, a quiet man with calloused hands and haunted eyes. He never spoke much at dinner, just stared into his bowl of stew like it held all the sins of the world. You remember being small, sneaking into the tool shed where he kept the axe. You didn't understand what it was for back then. You thought he chopped wood, maybe animals. You were half right, then he vanished. Some say he fled. Others whisper he was murdered, poisoned by a villager, maybe a grieving mother or a priest in plain clothes. Historians still argue whether executioners were more likely to die of disease, revenge, or their own quiet despair. The records don't agree. The townsfolk don't care. Your father left his post empty. And justice, as it turns out, doesn't take holidays. So they came for you. It wasn't a request. The town elders gathered in a circle, gray beards twitching like mice whiskers. They said it was tradition, that the role was inherited, that your family line was bound to the blade. You tried to refuse. You begged. You offered to leave the village. You even tried hiding, but they found you, and after that, you were it. You'd never held a sword before, never tied a noose. Your hands were built for planting, not killing. But they gave you your father's old hood anyway. The inside smelled like sweat and something bitter. Regret, perhaps. Or fear. You weren't sure. The village didn't throw a welcome feast. In fact, they started to disappear from your life like smoke. Friends stopped knocking on your door. The baker who once gave you the best crusts suddenly ran out of bread every time you walked past. Even your cousin Marta, who once shared apples with you under the old elm, started crossing the road when she saw you. You weren't a man anymore. You were a symbol. A walking reminder that anyone at any time could be judged, could be taken, could end up under your blade, and that blade, they didn't even give you a new one. Just handed down the same sword your father used, notched, heavy, and cold. They said it had character. You figured it had seen more necks than a tailor. You still tried to live a normal life. At first, you tended the garden, tried to fix the roof. You even went to the harvest festival that year. Bad idea. A child pointed and asked loudly, "Mama, is that the man who cuts heads off?" The music stopped. Conversations froze. And you left before the first dance. From then on, you stayed inside. Your home, once cozy and warm, began to feel like a prison. The walls seemed to inch closer each night. The air thickened with silence. You started hearing things, whispers that weren't there, footsteps in the grass. Maybe it was your mind playing tricks. Or maybe something else. Executioners were often said to be cursed. Stories told of spirits that followed them, shadows that mimicked their movements. One night you swore you saw your father standing at the end of your bed. He didn't speak, just looked at you, eyes hollow. Then he was gone. You began to dream of the scaffold, of that first man, of the way his eyes locked with yours before the swing. You'd wake up gasping, hand reaching for a blade that wasn't there. Sleep didn't come easy after that. So you stayed awake, pacing the floor, practicing your grip, muttering apologies to no one. Your hands developed calluses, not from swinging, from squeezing. Because the truth is, it's not the blade that turns a man into something else. It's the waiting. The waiting between jobs, the time when you know the village is watching you, judging you, fearing you. You're needed but never wanted, and you already feel it starting to change you. One moment you're still you, the next you're counting the steps from your bed to the door like it matters. You start organizing your tools by the order of pain they cause, not because you enjoy it, but because, well, someone has to. You even begin reading not books of stories or holy texts. No. You find anatomy sketches, scrolls about bones, sinew, blood flow. You study them the way other men study maps, seeking the quickest routes to the end. Because the fewer mistakes you make, the less screaming there is. And somewhere in the middle of all that learning, that waiting, that shifting of self, you forget the sound of your own laughter, even before your blade ever truly earns its bloodstains. You're marked, not by a scar or a tattoo, but by the looks people give you. Looks that say, you're not one of us anymore. You walk into the market and watch a path clear, like you're the plague itself. The butcher who once called you lad suddenly drops your meat into your hand without meeting your eyes. The innkeeper keeps accidentally forgetting your room. You pay him twice the going rate, doesn't matter. You sleep in the stables anyway, and if you think the children are any better, oh no. They whisper things behind carts. They dare each other to toss pebbles near your door. One little girl even left a drawing of you on your doorstep. A stick figure holding a dripping axe with red scribbles all around. Beneath it, in shaky letters, "Bad man." Your only response was to quietly fold it and place it on the shelf beside your cloak. You don't know why. Maybe because it was honest. You used to think you were part of this village. You danced at weddings, helped fix roofs, sang songs on feast days. But now? Now you're the ghost of justice, walking around in muddy boots. And what makes it worse, what gnaws at the edges of your sanity, is that you haven't even done much yet. One messy beheading, a few threats of more to come, and the whole town has already decided you're less than human, a function. Your home doesn't feel like home anymore. You sweep the floor twice a day, not because it's dirty, but because it gives your hands something to do. You rearrange your tools obsessively. Rope here, sword there, clean cloths folded just so. You light a candle every night and stare at it until the wax pools over the edge, because silence is a cruel thing. Even the walls judge you now. You can feel it in the way the wind moves through the shutters, like it's whispering secrets you're not meant to hear. And then there's the church. Ah yes, the holy place you used to sit in every seventh day. Head bowed, fingers loosely clasped. You go there once, just once, after your first job. You kneel quietly in the back, hoping no one will notice. They do. The priest stops mid-sermon, not with anger, with fear. "May the law be just," he mumbles, eyes flicking towards you, then away. He stumbles over the next verse. When the service ends, no one speaks to you. They shuffle out like you've tracked blood into the chapel. You don't return after that. But the dreams? They do. At night, your sleep is visited by phantoms, not angry, not vengeful, just present. Eyes watching, hands outstretched. And sometimes they speak, not in words, in sounds, ragged breathing, snapping twigs, the soft thump of a body dropping. One dream repeats. You're walking through the village and no one is there. Not a soul. Just open doors, half-eaten meals, abandoned carts, and hanging from every roof beam, every arch, every tree branch, Konistavnits Forifu, are masks. Your mask. Your mask. Black hoods swaying in the wind like forgotten prayers. You always wake up sweating. You try to distract yourself. You sharpen your sword, not because it needs it, but because the rhythmic scrape soothes you. You even build a small training dummy and practice swings, trying to find that perfect angle, clean cut, that elusive mercy. Because somewhere inside, you still hope. You hope that if you do this right, if you do it quickly, maybe it doesn't hurt as much, maybe it's not as awful. Maybe that counts for something, but the town doesn't see your guilt. They see your hood. One day, a boy drops his mother's eggs at the market. You reach down to help him. He screams, loud, wild. Everyone turns. You back away slowly, your hands open, harmless. But it doesn't matter, because the moment you picked up that blade, you stopped being you. You started becoming something else. And the truth is, you don't fully remember the old you anymore. The way you used to laugh when Marta pulled your hair. The way the sky looked on spring mornings. Even your favorite food, what was it again? Turnip stew? Or maybe roasted chestnuts? It's all fading now. And the more they avoid you, the more you start to avoid yourself. You stop using mirrors. Not out of superstition, out of discomfort. Because one night you catch your own reflection and realize you've stopped blinking when you look at people. You don't smile anymore. You barely move your face. Just that blank, calm stare. Like the condemned give you right before they drop. You're not evil. You know that. You've never taken pleasure in it, but still, something is changing. And whether you like it or not, it's only just beginning. Your uniform is simple. Rough wool. Heavy boots. A thick leather apron too stiff to move quietly in. And then, of course, the hood. Always the hood. Black as night, scratchy as hay, and soaked in the scent of 100 executions. It hangs by your door like a ghost waiting to be worn. You never wash it. Not because you don't want to, but because you're not supposed to. That's what old Jakob said. Never wash the hood, he told you, eyes gleaming under half-closed lids. It carries the weight of judgment. You wash it, you lose the fear, you didn't ask who Jakob was. You'd learn soon enough. Each morning you put it on, it's like slipping into a new skin. A skin that itches, that tightens around your throat just enough to remind you you're not you anymore, you're the blade. People think the hood is for anonymity, a symbol of mystery. But the real reason? It's distance. It's safety. Not for you, for them. Because when they see the hood, they can pretend you're not someone's son, not someone's brother, not someone who used to chase frogs in the riverbank just like everyone else. You become a shape, a symbol, the price of law, but you feel it. You feel the sweat building under the fabric, the damp stick of cloth against your face, the way your breath bounces back at you, hot and stale. And the smell, well, it's a war crime in and of itself, a blend of old blood, wet wool, and years of fear. Once you swore you smelled onions. You hadn't eaten onions in a week. You still don't know what that was about. You wear the same thing every job. There's no laundry service for executioners. No backup outfit. If you spill blood, too bad. If a head rolls a little too enthusiastically and smears your boots, tough luck. You wipe it off with hay and move on. And it's not just the outfit that itches, it's the feeling of being watched. Always watched. Not by the living, by the ones who didn't get to walk away. Every piece of clothing you wear to the scaffold is soaked in memory. Your gloves still have that tiny tear on the thumb from the time a prisoner tried to bite you. Your belt creaks where the buckle bent during that particularly nasty flogging. Even your boots, once your father's, feel heavier with every step. You tried once to wear something different. Just once. A simple tunic, brown, plain. You thought maybe, just maybe, it would feel less cursed. It didn't. The moment you stepped onto the platform, the murmurs began. Whispers, gasps, a woman fainted. A child burst into tears. So you went back to the hood. Now it's just part of you, a second face, a necessary lie. Because without the uniform, you'd be just a man. A man doing terrible things to people who sometimes did terrible things, and sometimes didn't. Historians still argue whether executioners believed in the guilt of the condemned, or if they simply stopped caring. But for you, you still care. That's the problem. The hood makes it easier. There are perks, of course, if you can call them that. No one taxes your land. No one tries to cheat you at the market. No one questions your word, because no one wants to speak to you long enough to hear it. You once told a merchant his apples looked a bit bruised today. The next day he left 3 baskets on your doorstep for free. You didn't eat them. Who knows what someone might do to an executioner's fruit? But the worst part of the uniform isn't the smell, or the weight, or the stares. It's the ritual. You can't just walk up and swing. No, there's a performance to it. You have to stand still while the charges are read. Hold your blade a certain way. Wait for the official nod. If you jump the process, even by a second, the entire event is tainted, and you might have to redo it. And no one wants to redo an execution. Sometimes they give you a speech to read, a scroll filled with phrases like "by the grace of his lordship" or "may the Almighty judge your soul." You read them in the same voice every time, low, even, empty. Because if your voice cracks, or your lip twitches, or your hand shakes, they'll remember that more than the crime. And of course, there's the crowd. Oh, the crowd. They don't dress up for weddings like they do for hangings. Whole families show up. Vendors sell roasted chestnuts. Children sit on shoulders, pointing at the axe like it's a carnival ride. You once saw someone bring a picnic blanket, and you're part of that show, the masked man. The grand finale, no matter how much you hate it, they need you to play your part. To be silent, to be sharp, to be perfect, no slip-ups, no stumbles, just clean, mechanical death. Once your sword slipped in the mud as you stepped forward. You tripped, caught yourself, thought it was no big deal. But the next day, you found a chalk drawing on your house, a stick figure face down with "clumsy killer" written underneath. You scrubbed it for hours. Another time, your blade chipped mid-swing. Took 2 extra strikes to finish the job. The crowd turned ugly. Someone threw a cabbage. You didn't flinch. Not then. But later, in the quiet, you sat on your floor with that chipped sword in your lap and cried. Not loud, not long, but enough. Your clothes, your hood, your boots, they're not armor. They're not protection. They're not power. They're a prison. They keep you locked in this role, keep the world outside from seeing you. And worse, keep you from seeing yourself. Sometimes, when you're alone, you take the hood and press it against your chest. Just hold it there, feeling the fabric, feeling the weight, wondering if you've already disappeared under it, wondering if the man beneath the mask still exists. And still, every time they call, you suit up. You put it on. You walk to the scaffold. You nod at the guards, and you become him. Because if you don't, someone else will. And you're not sure the next person will care as much as you do. You think maybe you're just the sword, that your job is only to cut clean and walk away. But no, this job, if you can call it a job, has no edges. It bleeds into everything, especially the things no one tells you about, like the pits. You thought someone else would handle that part, the digging, the burying, the cleanup. But here you are, knee-deep in loose soil, blisters blooming on your hands, trying not to gag as you shovel yesterday's justice into a shallow grave. Sometimes it's a body, sometimes it's pieces. Once it was ashes. They don't give you tools. You bring your own. You tried borrowing from the gravedigger once. He refused. Didn't even speak. Just looked at you like you'd asked to borrow his daughter. So now you dig with your father's old spade. It's heavy, rusted, and cracked in the handle. Much like you, the graves are never deep. No one visits these people. Your home doesn't feel like home anymore. You sweep the floor twice a day, not because it's dirty, but because it gives your hands something to do. You rearrange your tools obsessively. Rope here, sword there, clean cloths folded just so. You light a candle every night and stare at it until the wax pools over the edge, because silence is a cruel thing. Even the walls judge you now. You can feel it in the way the wind moves through the shutters, like it's whispering secrets you're not meant to hear. And then there's the church. Ah yes, the holy place you used to sit in every seventh day. Head bowed, fingers loosely clasped. You go there once, just once, after your first job. You kneel quietly in the back, hoping no one will notice. They do. The priest stops mid-sermon, not with anger, With fear, "May the law be just," he mumbles, eyes flicking towards you, then away. He stumbles over the next verse. When the service ends, no one speaks to you. They shuffle out like you've tracked blood into the chapel. You don't return after that. But the dreams? They do. At night, your sleep is visited by phantoms, not angry, not vengeful, just present. Eyes watching, hands outstretched. And sometimes they speak, not in words, in sounds, ragged breathing, snapping twigs, the soft thump of a body dropping. One dream repeats. You're walking through the village and no one is there. Not a soul. Just open doors, half-eaten meals, abandoned carts, and hanging from every roof beam, every arch, every tree branch, Konistavenets forifu, are masks. Your mask. Your mask. Black hoods swaying in the wind like forgotten prayers. You always wake up sweating. You try to distract yourself. You sharpen your sword, not because it needs it, but because the rhythmic scrape soothes you. You even build a small training dummy and practice swings, trying to find that perfect angle, clean cut, that elusive mercy. Because somewhere inside, you still hope. You hope that if you do this right, if you do it quickly, maybe it doesn't hurt as much, maybe it's not as awful. Maybe that counts for something, but the town doesn't see your guilt. They see your hood. One day, a boy drops his mother's eggs at the market. You reach down to help him. He screams, loud, wild. Everyone turns. You back away slowly, your hands open, harmless. But it doesn't matter, because the moment you picked up that blade, you stopped being you. You started becoming something else. And the truth is, you don't fully remember the old you anymore. The way you used to laugh when Marta pulled your hair. The way the sky looked on spring mornings. Even your favorite food, what was it again? Turnip stew? Or maybe roasted chestnuts? It's all fading now. And the more they avoid you, the more you start to avoid yourself. You stop using mirrors. Not out of superstition, out of discomfort. Because one night you catch your own reflection and realize you've stopped blinking when you look at people. You don't smile anymore. You barely move your face. Just that blank, calm stare. Like the condemned give you right before they drop. You're not evil. You know that. You've never taken pleasure in it, but still, something is changing. And whether you like it or not, it's only just beginning. Your uniform is simple. Rough wool. Heavy boots. A thick leather apron too stiff to move quietly in. And then, of course, the hood. Always the hood. Black as night, scratchy as hay, and soaked in the scent of 100 executions. It hangs by your door like a ghost waiting to be worn. You never wash it. Not because you don't want to, but because you're not supposed to. That's what old Jakob said. Never wash the hood, he told you, eyes gleaming under half-closed lids. It carries the weight of judgment. You wash it, you lose the fear. You didn't ask who Jakob was. You'd learn soon enough. Each morning you put it on, it's like slipping into a new skin. A skin that itches, that tightens around your throat just enough to remind you you're not you anymore, you're the blade. People think the hood is for anonymity, a symbol of mystery. But the real reason? It's distance. It's safety. Not for you, for them. Because when they see the hood, they can pretend you're not someone's son, not someone's brother, not someone who used to chase frogs in the riverbank just like everyone else. You become a shape, a symbol, the price of law, but you feel it. You feel the sweat building under the fabric, the damp stick of cloth against your face, the way your breath bounces back at you, hot and stale. And the smell, well, it's a war crime in and of itself, a blend of old blood, wet wool, and years of fear. Once you swore you smelled onions. You hadn't eaten onions in a week. You still don't know what that was about. You wear the same thing every job. There's no laundry service for executioners. No backup outfit. If you spill blood, too bad. If a head rolls a little too enthusiastically and smears your boots, tough luck. You wipe it off with hay and move on. No one brings flowers. Sometimes you wonder if you should. But what would you say? Sorry for the mess? You wear gloves, but it doesn't help. The smell seeps through everything. It's not just rot. It's fear, failure, and the echo of something unfinished. You once found a locket on a body, a small heart-shaped thing with 2 curls of hair inside. You held it for a moment too long, then dropped it in the dirt because you can't keep mementos. That's a rule you made for yourself, a rule you've already broken 4 times. The first was the locket. The second was a ring. The third, a piece of parchment with a prayer scrawled in childish handwriting. The fourth, well, that one you keep under your pillow. It's a pressed flower, wilted. Smells like dust now. You don't remember why you kept it. But the grave digging is only the beginning of the extra tasks. Some days they come knocking long before sunrise. The sheriff, the bailiff, or worse, some noble's wide-eyed page who's never seen real fear up close. They bring you to cells that reek of mold and secrets. Stone rooms deep underground, with chains and implements you pretend not to recognize. Oinson sighed. They say, we just need him to talk or make her confess, or show him what happens when you lie to the crown. You're not trained for this, not officially, but old Jakob teaches you. Jakob, the former torturer, toothless, leathery, and always smelling of onions. He takes you under his wing, probably the only man in town who actually wants to spend time with you. He shows you how to stretch a man's limbs without snapping them, how to twist a thumb with just the right pressure, how to threaten someone using only silence and a hot poker. You hate every second of it, but you learn because saying no isn't an option. You tried once. Refused to use the rack on a boy accused of stealing from the monastery. He looked 12, maybe 13. They brought in another man. You watched through the bars. The next day they handed you the same sword, same job, same nod. Jakob calls it craft. Says you need to understand the body to protect it. You think he's mad. But then again, maybe madness is just what happens when you do this too long and start thinking it makes sense. He tells you pain is a language, boy. Speak it well, or you'll end up screaming it. You write that down, not on parchment, in your mind, one day during a quiet moment between screams. You ask Jakob if he ever felt bad about any of it. He laughs, a cough of a laugh that sounds like gravel sliding down a hill. All the time, he says. That's why I drink. You never see him drink, though. Not once. There are other jobs, too. After executions, someone has to clean the platform. You try to get there early before the sun hits it, before the blood thickens into something unholy. You keep buckets under your sink now, not for water, for scrubbing away what you left behind. You think of it as your second execution. Killing the memory. It never works. Then there's the matter of display. Sometimes they want the head put on a spike. Sometimes a hand. Once they asked for both and the feet. You tried not to ask questions. You just did it, because that's the rule. You're not supposed to think. Just follow orders. Clean, impersonal death, except nothing about this is clean or impersonal. One time a man's family came to plead for the body, begged to take it down and bury it properly. You wanted to say yes. You really did, but you couldn't. You didn't. They threw rocks at you as you walked away. You didn't even turn around, because what would you say? I'm sorry, I'm just the guy with the sword. No one believes that. Not anymore. You start keeping notes. Little scribbles, dates, names, final words. Sometimes you write down what they wore, what the crowd looked like, what you felt, if you felt anything. Most of the time it's just blank. Just a name, a job done, a line drawn under another life. You hide the notes in a box under the floorboards. A wooden box with a rusted clasp. Your father had one too. You found it after he disappeared. Inside were 25 pieces of parchment. You've added 43 more. You're beginning to wonder if the box will fill before you do. And in all this, you start to notice something strange. You've stopped crying. Not just during work. At all. You can't remember the last time you shed a tear. Not when your goat died. Not when you burned your hand. Not even when the boy with the locket looked you in the eye and said, "Tell my sister I didn't do it." You tried, you really did, but the sister spat in your face. Sometimes you practice your swing late at night, not because you want to get better, but because the motion is comforting. Familiar. A reminder that you still have control over something. And other nights you sit by the window watching the town sleep. The same town that cursed you, that avoids you, that depends on you more than they admit, and you wonder, quietly, softly, if there's a way out, a way to be more than the blade. But deep down you already know the answer. You wake up before dawn again. You don't have to, but you do. Sleep comes and goes in a world like yours. You're haunted not by ghosts, but by decisions, orders followed, heads rolled, and faces that stared blankly as you stepped back with your axe. You stretch your sore shoulders and feel the coolness of the stone walls pressing in from every side. This isn't your home, not really, just a modest place close to the prison, close to your work. Today is not a job day, not a swinging day, no crowd, no official sentence to carry out, but that doesn't mean it's a rest day. You have to maintain your tools. Just like a blacksmith sharpens and oils, you do too, though yours are for splitting necks and sawing limbs, building horseshoes. Funny how people forget that your tools rust just like theirs. Blood and time wear everything down. You take a small cloth, dab it with oil, and begin wiping your axe blades. There are several. One is ceremonial, heavy and wide, rarely used. Mostly for show when a noble has to go. The others are your daily grinders, lightweight, with a sharp, clean edge and balanced feel. You always test the edge on a strip of leather. Today it slices clean, that's good. You don't want a dull blade. Here's something odd. Historians still argue whether executioners were responsible for maintaining all torture equipment, or just the sharp stuff. Some say the torturer and the executioner were separate jobs entirely. Others believe it was a package deal. In your case, it doesn't matter. You do what's needed. And what's needed today? Cleaning the branding irons. Yes, branding with fire, with red-hot iron pressed onto skin until it hisses and the person screams. You've done it. On thieves, mainly. Sometimes on runaway serfs. There's one shaped like a T for thief. Another like a V for vagrant. It's not always about execution. Sometimes it's about sending a message that lasts longer than a scream. You hate that part the most, because they live with it. There's a faint hiss as you heat the branding iron just enough to kill the blood left on its edge. Sanitary work, even in a world that doesn't care much for sanitation. As the fire crackles, you remember one poor soul, a young boy, maybe 12, caught stealing bread. You branded him. That wasn't your decision. But you did it. It's hard to forget the sound he made. Not just the scream, but the small, gasping sob after, like the world had broken for him right then. You swallow hard and set the iron down. The boy's face floats in your memory. That's the thing about this life. It stacks up, faces, smells, sounds. They don't leave you. They don't leave you. Still, not all days are bleak. Sometimes you get to walk the town in peace. Not many talk to you, but that has its own benefit. No small talk, no bartering. People move out of your way. You walk to the baker's stall. He doesn't say a word, just hands you a loaf. You drop a coin, nod, and walk away. He's not afraid, really. Just respectful. Afraid of being too friendly. Afraid of drawing attention. You're the quiet part of the justice system. the last stop, the one nobody wants to think about but everyone needs. As you chew the bread, walking back past the muddy streets, you see a gallows being repaired. Someone's hammering the frame. A new rope is coiled nearby. That's a grim reminder that more work is coming. You nod to the carpenter, who nods back silently. Executioners and gallows builders don't speak much, but there's a shared craft in what you do. Both of you work with wood and precision. Only your outcomes differ. Another thing people don't realize, executions take preparation. It's not just a man, a blade, and a swing. There's paperwork, orders, announcements. You rehearse sometimes, not for performance, but for clean results. A good execution is fast, one blow done. No suffering, that's your standard. Anything less is shameful. Back at your quarters, you sit and wipe the sweat from your brow. You glance at your shelf. There's a thick woolen hood there. You don't wear it anymore, but you used to. In the early years, it was easier to swing if they couldn't see your eyes. But now you've stopped hiding. It's your face they see last. Maybe that helps, or maybe it doesn't. You sometimes wonder if they see mercy in your eyes, or just resignation. And here's a strange thing. Some people want you to look at them. They stare right into your soul as if asking, "Do you believe in what you're doing? Do you believe I deserve this?" Sometimes you don't, but that doesn't matter. You carry out justice, not debate it. At night, you light a single candle and sharpen again. It's more than habit now, it's ritual. Steel against stone, a slow rhythm. There's comfort in it. Repetition is calming, it's predictable in a world full of screaming chaos. You hear whispers through the thin walls, prisoners in nearby cells. Some pray, others curse. A few sing, off-key and broken, but still singing. It's the sound of people trying to remember they're human. You look up. The moonlight is filtering through the slats. It's soft tonight. Almost kind. And for a moment, just a second, you think maybe you're just a man with a job, like any other. But that's a lie, isn't it? You aren't a blacksmith. You don't fix shoes. You don't make bread. You end people. That's your craft. And as much as you try to convince yourself that you're just following orders, part of you wonders, what would your life be if you weren't so good at this? And that brings us to the part of your job nobody envies, cleaning up after a beheading. No, really. You don't just swing the axe and stroll away whistling. You're responsible for the aftermath, and let's just say it isn't pretty. You kneel by the wooden block, your knees pressing into old, damp straw. Blood has soaked through the grain, thick and metallic smelling, and it's not fresh anymore. The air is a swamp of old sweat, wet wood, and something sharp and decaying. That's because the execution site isn't cleaned thoroughly ever. It's just reused. Over and over again. You grab a pail of water, splash, scrub. You try to scrub the block clean while bystanders, especially kids, stare wide-eyed through the iron fence. Sometimes they giggle, sometimes they look like they're about to cry. One boy mimics your axe swing. Great, you've just inspired the next generation. Your cloth turns a deep reddish black. No matter how hard you scrub, it won't go away. This isn't laundry. It's a stain from a soul leaving the body. And it clings. Now you've got to dispose of the head. Yes, that's on you too. Sometimes it's mounted on a spike, sometimes dumped into a pit. Depends on the sentence and who ordered it. Either way, you have to carry it. It still drips. Sometimes the eyes are open. You try not to look. Let's take a brief detour from the horror for something equally disturbing but surprisingly fascinating. Executioners had to sharpen their own tools. Not just the axe, but also swords, knives, and saws, depending on what method of punishment was requested. You even have a small whetstone you carry in your belt. You grind that edge with steady hands because if you miss or botch a strike, Well, people will talk. Historians still argue whether botched executions were common or rare. Some say most executioners were surprisingly skilled craftsmen who trained for years. Others believe that many jobs were done hastily and sloppily, especially when peasants were involved. Either way, you live with the anxiety of not missing the mark. Literally, a single misswing means a slow death. The crowd jeers. Some throw rotten onions or bits of bread. Your reputation suffers. And in medieval society, a ruined reputation is nearly impossible to fix. There's no LinkedIn for failed executioners. At the end of the day, you take a flask out from your satchel and sit near the gallows. It's quiet now. Even the flies are resting. You drink slowly, not to forget, but just to feel something other than the iron grip of duty. Your hands still tremble. You think about the condemned. You think about their eyes. You think about how many more you'll have to do. Quirky detail time. Some executioners, believe it or not, had apprentices. Yep. An intern. You're not just traumatized. You're mentoring someone else through their trauma. You're like the worst summer job supervisor in history. Okay, Timmy, today you clean the block. Tomorrow we practice knot tying. This isn't a one-man act anymore. You've got a small crew, especially if you live in a larger town. There's someone to keep the tools ready, someone to fetch messages from the local officials, and sometimes someone to carry the body to the cart. But you're still the star of the show, which makes you wonder, how did you become this person? Flashback. Your father was a butcher. He handled meat with precision, with care, with almost artistic attention. You remember watching him skin a rabbit. He made no mistakes. But he was poor. When the town needed someone to take over the axe, he volunteered. It paid better. Sort of. When he grew old, you inherited the role. Not because you wanted to, but because someone had to do it, and your name was already blackened. So now it's you, scrubbing blood while people whisper your name with disgust. Funny how the man who keeps law and order is hated like a criminal. You walk home through the side streets. You avoid the market. Again, no one wants to sell to the man who cuts necks for coins. You pass two children playing with sticks. One of them holds it like a sword and yells your name, followed by a fake scream and a giggle. Charming. And when you finally get home, it's just you and the silence. The candle flickers, and you place your axe on the wooden table, careful not to let it touch the bread. Even executioners get hungry. You eat slowly, one bite at a time, trying not to think about what your hands have done today. You stare at your reflection in the darkened window. Who are you now? A man with a job or a shadow that people fear? The line blurs. Sometimes, late at night, you wonder if you can quit. Just vanish into the woods, become a hermit, grow herbs, live in peace. But you know better. Your face is known, your hands are known. There's no retirement plan for you, no pension. Just time and more work, and let's not forget the paperwork. Yes, even you have records to fill out. Who was executed, when, for what crime. You deliver them to the town clerk in the morning. They always place the papers at the edge of the table. No eye contact. As if your touch will curse them, some people dream of being knights, merchants, or explorers. You? You dream of being unknown, invisible, just another man in the crowd, morning again, cold. The sun hasn't fully risen. You roll out of your straw bed and your back cracks like old wood. Sleep never really comes to you now. Just long stretches of lying still and staring into the dark. You sit up slowly. Your axe is leaning in the corner, gleaming from the oil you rubbed in last night. You always keep it ready. You have to. You pull on your rough tunic, the same one you've worn all week. Doesn't matter. No one cares what the executioner wears. You slip into your boots and walk to the door. The street outside is misty. damp. You walk down the narrow alley, avoiding eye contact with the few early risers. They avoid you too, turning their heads or muttering prayers. You sigh. You don't blame them. In this town, you're the reminder. You're the face of fear. People can laugh at night, drink at the inn, tell jokes. But when they see you, they remember where they live. They remember the law, the consequences. You are not welcome in their happiness. You reach the town square. It's empty, but not for long. Today, there's another sentence. Theft. A boy, maybe Shih-Chi, caught stealing 2 loaves of bread. The baker, furious, demanded justice. The judge agreed. Too many thefts lately. They want to make an example. You walk past the wooden platform. You run your hand over the grain. It's rough and splintered. You remember every time you've stood there. Every scream. Giap Bokanta finder definite. Every scream. Every silence after the final blow. You check the ropes. Tight. Strong. You always make sure. A clean job is a merciful job, but today is not a beheading. Today is a hanging. The gallows is already set. You inspect the trapdoor, the release mechanism. You test the knot. You don't want a slow death, not even for a thief. A clean drop, neck snaps over in seconds. That's what you hope for. That's what you pray for, not that anyone wants to hear you pray. You walk to the small wooden shack beside the square. Inside, the boy waits. His hands are tied. He's pale, his eyes red from crying, his lips tremble. He looks like a child, not a criminal. You stand at the doorway. He doesn't look at you, he just stares at the floor. You take a deep breath, then Bor Versan Porl. You take a deep breath. Then you speak. Quietly. Gently. It will be quick. He flinches. You hate this part. Not the work, the waiting, the silence before, the fear. The moment when a person realizes the story of their life is about to end, and you are the one holding the last line. You nod to the guards. They lead him out. The crowd is gathering now. People want to see justice. Or maybe they just want a distraction from their hunger. Or maybe they want to feel better about their own sins. Whatever the reason, they're here. And so are you. The boy is led up the steps. He stumbles once. One guard grabs his arm. He's crying now. The judge reads the sentence aloud, voice flat. No feeling. Just words. You stand behind the boy. You place the noose over his head. You adjust the knot. You whisper again, barely a sound. Breathe in, he does. And then you pull the lever. The trapdoor opens. The boy falls. His body jerks once. Then stillness, silence. The crowd exhales. A few people cheer. Most just watch. Then, one by one, they turn and leave. Back to their homes, their chores, their empty bowls. You stay. You lower the body. You untie his hands. You close his eyes. You carry him to the back cart where the others lie. There's always someone waiting to bury them. Someone who also lives at the edge of town. Another outcast. You nod to him. He nods back. Nothing more. Another day, another soul. You walk to the river. You kneel at the edge. You wash your hands. You scrub hard. It doesn't come off. Not the blood. Not the guilt. Not the memory. You sit on the rocks. You look at the sky. It's blue. Birds fly over. Free. Light. And you go back to the square. Because you're not done yet. The next case is different. The order comes in the afternoon. A nobleman accused of treason. This time it's serious. High profile. Important. And that means one thing: the execution must be perfect. No mistake. No mess. You receive the letter from the mayor himself. He doesn't hand it to you. He places it on a bench and steps back like you're carrying a plague. You read the message: execution, sunrise, special crowd, high-ranking guests, foreign diplomats. You will wear black. You will use the great sword. You will bow before and after. You will show honor, of course. They only care about dignity when it's someone rich. You sharpen the great sword. It's heavy, it takes time. You light a candle and sit alone in your hut. The room smells like metal and wax. You run the blade along the whetstone again and again until the edge gleams like moonlight. You close your eyes. You see faces. You see the boy from this morning. You see the old man from last week, the woman with the scar, the merchant who screamed, the thief who sang, the warrior who stared at you without fear. They never leave you. You sleep for 1 hour. Then you rise. Dawn is gray, the platform is polished, the crowd is silent, the nobleman is tall. Proud. He doesn't beg. He doesn't speak. He just kneels. You respect that. You place your hand on his shoulder. For balance. For goodbye, you raise the sword, you bring it down, clean, 1 stroke, silence, then applause. Yes. Applause. From the important men, from the guests, from the mayor, they clap. Like it's a performance, you feel sick. You walk away, behind the building, you vomit, then like always you clean the blade. You wrap it in cloth. You walk home, at your door there's a basket, inside bread, cheese, a bottle of wine, a gift, no note, no name. You stand there, basket in your hands, unsure what to feel. Is it thanks? Is it a bribe? Is it guilt? You take it inside, you sit, you eat, you stare at the fire. Tomorrow someone else will be sentenced and you will do your job again and again because that is your life. Not a hero, not a villain, just a man with an axe and a heavy heart. Your boots are heavier today. Not because they're wet or worn, but because of where they're taking you. You're on your way to a small, stony cell tucked beneath the city walls. Inside it waits your subject, a man accused of heresy. Now, whether he's guilty is another matter. You don't ask anymore. The court says he is, and that's all you're supposed to care about. And so you carry with you not just your tools, but your invisible burden of guilt and questions you never say aloud. The man has been there for days. No food, no light. Just the echo of his breath and his own thoughts. You enter. He doesn't even lift his head. You notice something odd. He's whispering over and over the same phrase in Latin. Probably a prayer. Maybe a curse. You don't ask. You only nod toward the guard. The man's wrists are bound, his arms lifted, and slowly he's hung by them. This is strappado, one of your least favorite duties. The joint pop is sickening. His face twists, but he doesn't scream. He's either too brave or too far gone. And here in this moment you feel it. The worst part of the job isn't the violence. It's the waiting, the silence between each crank, the sound of your own breathing, the overwhelming sensation that somewhere something has gone deeply wrong. You were supposed to be the hand of justice. Instead, you feel like it's forgotten footnote. You whisper back to him, almost as if to level things out. You know, you say quietly. Historians still argue whether confessions from Strappado were ever reliable. He laughs. That wasn't supposed to be funny, but here we are. And again, your mind drifts because you've noticed something. The older you get, the less confident you are in the righteousness of your work. Younger, you believed every man was guilty if he stood trial. But now, you start noticing patterns. The ones with land, the ones who speak too freely, the ones who refuse to kneel. Still you tighten the rope, that's the job. By midday he speaks. Whether it's the truth or not, you record it. You sign it, you send it. But the odd part is what happens next. He thanks you, seriously. He actually thanks you, says it's a relief, says he was ready for worse. That's the strange psychological math of medieval torture. Sometimes just not dying is considered mercy. You give him a cloth for the blood, a little water, and in a strange way you feel almost kind. That's a scary feeling when you're holding someone's dislocated shoulder in your memory. The walk home is slower today. You pass the bakery, try to ignore the smell of hot bread. You think about his face. Not the pain, but the moment he smiled, like he'd beaten you somehow. And maybe he did. Maybe enduring was a bigger victory than surviving. When you get home, you're quiet. You wash your hands even though they're clean. You touch your own shoulder, still intact, and you remember your old friend Gilles, the guy who taught you this trade. He once said, "The day you stop feeling anything is the day you're truly cursed." You're still feeling, all right? That's what worries you. And the deeper truth? You're not just haunted by the men who cry. You're haunted by the ones who don't. Tonight, as you close your eyes, your own joints ache a little. You imagine the ropes on your wrists. You imagine confessing to things you didn't do, just to make it stop. And you wonder if someone else held the crank, would you stay silent too? That's the real question. Not are you doing your job, but what would you say if the roles were reversed? You never used to wonder things like that. The next morning you wake up before the sun, not because you want to, but because of a dream. It's always the same dream now. A dim room, a man tied to a chair. You walk toward him, but when you look closer, it's you. You're the one tied down, and you're also the one standing over yourself. The tools are on the table. The fire is already lit. You always wake up before anything happens. But the fear stays. It clings to your skin like sweat. You sit at the edge of your bed, rubbing your hands together. They feel stiff even though you didn't do anything yesterday. Your wife stirs beside you. She doesn't ask. She's learned not to. You used to tell her everything. Now you just say work was long. And that's easier. Quitter, you go outside, pour cold water on your face, and look at the rising sun. Birds chirp like nothing's wrong. That's what's strange. The world goes on. The village laughs. Kids run in the street. But deep under the stone streets, men cry in silence. And you're the one who makes them cry. You weren't born for this. No one is. But choices are strange. First you needed coin. Then you got good at it. Then they said you were the best. You get results, they told you. You don't overdo it. That's a compliment now? Not overdoing pain? That's what passes for a moral compass? You weren't always this person. You remember when you were young, you wanted to be a carpenter, build homes, make chairs, feel the smooth shape of wood in your hands. But life said no. You will hold metal instead. Your first subject had been a thief, a boy, really? 16, maybe 17? He stole bread, just bread. You didn't even touch him, you just watched. Another man did the job, but the boy looked at you the whole time, like he was asking, "You're not going to stop this?" You didn't, and ever since you felt like your soul has a door. And that boy is still knocking on it. Back at the dungeon, they've brought in a woman today. That's always harder. You try not to show it. She's accused of poisoning a lord's wine. A nobleman died. But everyone says the nobleman beat his wife and starved his staff. Maybe he just made enemies. Maybe this woman's just unlucky. You walk into the room. She's tied to the chair already. Not crying. Not even afraid, it seems. You admire that in a sad way. She looks you in the eye. You've learned that's rare. Most people avoid your gaze. As if your eyes hold pain. Maybe they do. "What do you want from me?" she asks. You pause. Just answers. And if I don't have them? You don't respond? That's not part of the script. You're not paid to talk. Just to extract? The guards leave. It's just you and her now. You lay the tools out. Slowly, quietly. She watches. "Do you believe in God?" she asks. "That catches you off guard. I used to," you say. "Before I took this job," she smiles a little. "I still do. Even now," you nod. "Good. You might need him." Vom Paffer threats. It's not a threat. It's honest. You light the fire. Heat the blade. Blade. Not to cut, but to scare. Sometimes fear is enough, but she doesn't flinch, doesn't scream. She tells you her story. A poor healer, accused by a rich man's wife out of jealousy. Maybe she's lying, maybe she's not, but the pain in her voice is real. You realize something in that moment. Your job isn't just about breaking bones. It's about breaking belief. You're not just taking confessions, you're taking hope. And that's worse, she lasts an hour. Then she breaks, cries, sobs, says she'll say anything, but what do you write? Do you write the truth? Or the lie they want? You hesitate, and that's dangerous. Hesitation means doubt. Doubt means danger. You've seen men who hesitated too long. They disappear. You don't want to disappear. So you write what they want. When you hand the paper to the guard, you say nothing. He nods. The woman is dragged away. You go to the courtyard. Stand in the sun. Try to feel normal. Then you hear a laugh. Children are chasing a chicken. A man is carving wood. Someone plays a lute. Life continues. And you stand in the middle of it like a ghost. You're alive, but not living. You go home early. Your wife is baking. She smiles. Asks if you want stew tonight. You nod. She touches your hand. It lingers. You look at her and wonder, what would she think if she knew the things I've done? Maybe she already knows. Maybe she just chooses love over truth. You eat in silence. That night you hear the whisper again. That Latin phrase, the man from last week. It's stuck in your mind. You look it up. It means the one who judges shall be judged. You close the book. You lie awake. You think of all the faces, all the hands, all the eyes that never looked away. You wonder, who will be there when it's your turn? Because in your heart you know Striendl. It always comes back around. And that is why it sucked to be a medieval torturer. Not just because of what you did to others, but because of what it did to you. Runeword Count, E. Erbeck-Lingsan, would you like a final short epilogue? Or shall I create more titles like this series? You're still rubbing sleep from your eyes. When the town crier's bell rings through the streets. It's a cold morning, and your breath hangs in the air like smoke. The sound bounces between the stone buildings and lands squarely in your ears. There's going to be another execution today. And just like that, breakfast tastes a little more like iron. You get dressed quickly, not because you're excited, but because routine keeps your thoughts quiet. The leather jerkin, the thick gloves, the black hood. It's not that you're hiding your face out of shame. It's just tradition now. And a little part of you hopes the hood can hide your own trembling. Outside the city gates, the execution site is already being prepared. You trudge through the mud, boots squelching, passing by a man sharpening the axe. Not your axe, yours is already sharp, but still, the sound makes your spine tingle. Funny how steel against stone can sound like teeth grinding. Today's sentence is a beheading. The condemned is a man caught stealing from a noble's carriage. Not just any noble, one of the king's personal guards. The stolen item? A goblet. Historians still argue whether the goblet was actually gold or just gilded wood. But it doesn't matter. Theft from the wrong person gets you a one-way ticket to the execution block. You meet the condemned briefly before the procession. He's younger than you expected. Maybe 20. He looks like someone who once worked in a bakery. He's shaking, but trying not to show it. You nod at him. You don't say anything. You never do. It's not that you're heartless. It's just that words don't help much now. The crowd begins to form. Mothers holding children, merchants pausing sales, even beggars pulling themselves closer to the front. Everyone wants a good view. Medieval justice is nothing if not theatrical. And here you are, the star no one really wants to see up close. You mount the wooden steps. The gallows creaks under your weight. The boy is brought forward, and you help him kneel. You don't look him in the eyes, not anymore. You tried that once. didn't sleep for a week. The priest gives the final blessing and you raise your axe. Your arms are strong, you've done this before. But it never gets easier, not really. The crowd hushes as you adjust your grip. You swing. Let's pause there. No need to go into detail. This isn't about violence. It's about weight. The weight you carry after. The kind that sinks into your bones and lives behind your ribs like a second heartbeat. After the deed is done, the crowd disperses, some clapping, some whispering. You clean the axe quietly. No one offers thanks. No one offers judgment either. You're just a part of the machinery now. You return to your small home. It smells like old onions and wet wool. You wash your hands once, twice, 3 times. Still, they don't feel clean. Later that evening, the mayor sends word. You're to attend a small gathering of officials. Something about keeping up appearances. You know the drill. Wine, stale bread, awkward silences when you enter the room. Being the executioner means you're both needed and never truly welcome. At the gathering, someone offers you wine. You take it. A nobleman makes a joke about keeping your blade polished. You fake a laugh. It's easier than silence. One man asks if it was a clean cut. You don't answer. You just take another sip. A curious thing happens. A woman, mid-scissors, dressed in faded blue, approaches you. She says nothing for a long moment, just looks at your hands. Then quietly says, "That was my son." You don't know what to say. There's no training for this part. No hood thick enough to block the sound of a mother's heartbreak. She doesn't cry. She just walks away. You leave early, walking home through streets that seem to curl around you like closing hands. Every window feels like an eye. Every echo sounds like your own voice whispering, "Was it worth it?" That night you don't sleep. You stare at the wooden ceiling above your bed and listen to the rats in the corner. Somewhere a dog barks. Somewhere else, someone is laughing. Life moves on. It always does. You just wish you could move with it the next morning. You wake up before dawn. You sharpen your axe again, not because it's dull, but because it's habit now. The rhythm of it calms you. Scrape, scrape, scrape. You go to market later, trying to buy bread. The baker avoids your eyes. A child clutches his mother's hand when you pass. You're not a monster. But you look like one to them. You try not to care. But you do. As you walk home, you see a group of kids playing with sticks, pretending to be knights. One of them shouts, "I'll be the executioner." The others laugh and pretend to fall. You stop walking for a second. That used to be you. The thing they never tell you is this: executioners are made, not born. You didn't grow up dreaming of this. You had a father, a sister, a little dog named Rook, Quoteen named Rook. But when the plague came, they were gone. And then one day, the town needed someone. And you stepped forward. You thought it'd be temporary. Just until things got better. That was 15 years ago. A fringe story says that in one small French village, the executioner was required to live outside the town walls, marked with red paint on his door. No one ever knocked. He died alone, buried with no priest. Historians still debate whether that's true or just a cautionary tale told to scare apprentices into behaving. But you believe it, because sometimes the silence around you feels just as thick. You return home, eat your bread in silence, and wait. Wait for the next bell, the next name, the next weight on your soul. You wipe your brow with a cloth that hasn't been washed in weeks. The late summer sun beats down hard, turning your padded underclothes into a personal oven. You shift your weight from one foot to the other, trying not to think about the heat or the stench of the crowd pressing in. Today's execution is special. It's not just a beheading. It's a hanging followed by display. The people love a bit of theater. You glance at the condemned. His face is pale. His hands tremble. His knees wobble with every step. He was found guilty of thievery and something about being a heretic, though you've stopped listening to the charges. That's not your job. You do the end part, the last part of someone's life, a grim finale in a world that's already hard enough. You tie the rope with steady hands. The knot is called the hangman's knot, and it's more than just folklore. Too few loops and the rope doesn't snap the neck. Too many and it tightens wrong. There's a technique to all this, a cruel little science passed down from one grim hand to another. You were taught it by the previous executioner, who never spoke in full sentences and had a habit of grinding his teeth. You adjust the knot, pull it tight, step back. The man starts crying, begging. A few people in the crowd start laughing. A few look away. You don't react. You never do. It's part of the job. People expect you to be emotionless, some kind of monster without feelings. And maybe over time you've leaned into that, but there are days like today when you feel it. The weight. The strange, heavy silence that comes right before the platform opens and someone drops into history. Your hand hovers over the lever. Historians still argue whether medieval hangings were more about justice or public fear. Was this punishment really about right and wrong, or was it a warning, a reminder, something like a keep in line billboard with a human body attached? You pull the lever, the man falls, and nothing breaks. Oh no, the rope stretches, but doesn't snap his neck. He kicks, he chokes. The crowd murmurs, then gasps. You feel it, the awkward tension. They came for a clean show, not a slow one. Now you have to intervene. It's part of your job to make sure the man dies. Quickly, if not cleanly, you walk forward, grab his legs, and yank. It's brutal. You hate this part. You try not to look him in the eyes. The weight of his struggle pulls on your arms and your heart, and then it's over. You step back. The body dangles. The crowd slowly disperses. Some of them satisfied, some disappointed. One man tosses a coin at your feet. He says nothing. Neither do you. You clean up, untie the body. The church will handle the burial or the disposal, depending on the crime. You head back to the executioner's quarters, a small stone building by the wall. It's quiet here. No children. No laughter. Just silence and the scratch of your boots on gravel. You take off your padded clothes. Your shirt sticks to your back. You splash water on your face from a cracked clay basin. It smells faintly of rust. You sit, finally, and exhale. Sometimes the job is clean. Sometimes it's messy. And sometimes, like today, it feels like a slow slide into something darker. You remember what the priest told you once, before a particularly grim hanging. Pray not for the man, but for yourself. You carry more sin than he ever did. You didn't ask for this job, but you took it, and now it sticks to you day and night, like the smell of rope and sweat, like the memory of kicking legs, like the guilt you pretend not to feel. There's a small window in your room. Through it, you see the last sliver of sun disappearing behind the city wall. The wind smells faintly of bread, wood smoke, and sewage. A perfect summary of the world. Outside, you lie down on a cot that creaks like an old boat. Your hands still feel the roughness of the rope. Your arms ache. You wonder what the man was like before he was condemned. Did he steal out of greed or hunger? Was he truly a heretic or just unlucky enough to anger someone in power? You'll never know. You're not allowed to know. That part isn't for you. Your job is the end. And tomorrow there might be another. One quirky fact you once heard from a wandering monk was that in some places, people believed hanging was a cleanse, that it purified the soul. It seems ridiculous now, but sometimes you think about it. You wonder if that's why the rope sometimes stretches too much. Maybe the soul is pulling back. The fire burns low. Your eyes start to close. You've survived another day. But just barely. The morning comes slowly. You wake before the birds, before the sun, before the city stirs. Your sleep is light now. always is. Your body rests, but your mind doesn't. Too many faces in your memory. Too many final breaths. You light a candle and sit at the table. The wax drips slowly. The flame dances like it knows something you don't. You take out a piece of bread, hard as stone, and dip it in water to soften it. You eat in silence. Your only company is your own breath and the echo of yesterday's rope. Outside, the town begins to stretch and yawn. A cart rolls over the cobblestone. A rooster crows from somewhere far away. You hear the clang of a blacksmith's hammer. The world is waking, but you already feel tired. You were once a different man. Before the hood, before the axe, before the gallows. You were just a boy with a strong back and no father. You worked where you could, on farms, with horses, cleaning stalls, hauling water. You didn't ask for much, just food and a place to sleep. But life doesn't always ask what you want. Sometimes it just gives. The job came when the last executioner died. Nobody wanted it. Not even the town council. They offered food, coin, and a room of your own. That was more than you'd ever had. So you said yes. The priest blessed you. The people ignored you. And the first time you swung the axe, your hands shook for hours. Now, your hands don't shake. But your heart still does. You go outside. The morning air is cool. You walk to the gallows, not for a job today, but to check the ropes, to make sure the platform doesn't creak too much. You keep the place clean, oddly enough. You think people expect it to be dirty, but for some reason it feels wrong if it's messy. Like disrespect, you find a crow sitting on the beam. It stares at you. You stare back. Go on then, you say softly. It flies away. You hear footsteps behind you. A small boy, maybe 10 years old, stands nearby. He doesn't speak at first, just watches you. You're the hangman, he says finally. You nod. My daw says you're a bad man. You nod again. What's there to say? The boy frowns. But you saved my uncle once, when they were going to burn him. You said it was not right, that he was sick, not evil, you remember? A man with shaking hands and strange words. The village wanted to call him cursed. But you'd seen something else. You spoke to the priest. The trial never happened, you remember him? The boy asks. Yes, you say. He still shakes, but he laughs now. Mama says that's a miracle. You nod again. Something tight in your chest loosens. Just a little. Are you going to hang someone today? No. Good, he says, then runs off. You stand there a long time, staring at the platform. You wonder if people know how often you say no. There are days when you refuse. Quietly, carefully. You talk to the judge. You speak to the priest. You find ways around the rope. It doesn't always work, but sometimes it does. You walk back home. The baker nods at you today. That's new. In the market, you hear gossip. A nobleman's son is in trouble. Drunken fighting. Broken nose. There's talk of punishment, not death, never for the rich, but a show. A lashing, maybe, or a night in the stocks. You know what the people want, blood or shame. If they can't get one, they'll take the other. You pass a woman selling onions. She glances at you, then looks away. Her hands tremble. You keep walking. At home you sit again. The candle has melted into a puddle. You light another. You take out a book. It's old, with pages worn from years of turning. You don't read much, but some pages you've memorized. One quote stays with you. Even the hand that strikes can carry sorrow. You wonder who wrote it. Maybe another executioner, maybe a soldier, maybe just someone who had to do something awful and needed to believe it meant something. You take a charcoal pencil and write the words again on the wall. You've written many things there. Words from books, words from dreams, words no one else will ever see. You lie down. The cot groans again. Your hands are sore from yesterday, your knees ache, you're not young anymore. You wonder how this ends. Who replaces you? Will they be kind? Or will they love the rope too much? You hope deep down that they'll hate it, that they'll cry the first time, that they'll walk home sick and swear never to do it again. But then they'll come back the next day, because the job is the job. And no one else wants it. There's a knock on your door, you open it, it's the priest. He looks tired, there's someone in the stocks, he says. Drunk. Loud. The mayor wants him flogged. He asked for you, you sigh. Is it urgent? No. But they want it done by nightfall, you nod. I'll come. He doesn't leave. He looks at you for a long time. Do you ever think of stopping? He asks. You stare past him, out to the street, to the birds flying low, searching for crumbs, to the old dog sleeping in the dirt, to the cracked cobblestone you walk every day. Yes, you say. Then why don't you? You shrug. You shrug. Who would do it? He doesn't answer. You gather your tools. A whip. A bucket of water. Clean cloth for afterward. You're not cruel. You do it quickly. Then you bandage the wounds. You've learned to hurt and heal all in the same motion. You walk to the square. A small crowd has gathered. The drunk man is shouting songs. He sees you and sobers immediately. No, not him, he mumbles. He's the quiet one. The scary one. You say nothing. You tie his hands. Secure his shirt. Make sure the rope around his wrists is loose enough not to cut. You lash him 5 times. Clean. Sharp. Not too deep. The blood is minimal. The shame is more than enough. You step back. The mayor nods. The man is released. He stumbles away. The people leave, some disappointed. You clean the whip. Wash your hands. Walk home, another day done. You sit again at the table. You light another candle. You stare at the flame. You wonder how many candles it takes to light a dark soul. And how many more until it burns clean. The bell tolls again. Another name, another task. Today's victim is a rebellious monk who dared speak against the king's tax collectors. You stand under gray clouds that seem to press down on your shoulders, the wood of the execution platform slick from last night's rain. Your boots squish with each step, but you don't have time to care. The crowd is already forming. You sigh. This one's going to be loud. He's brought out in chains, barefoot, eyes cast downward. They say he quoted scripture in the middle of the village square and compared the king to Pharaoh. Not the smartest move. The crowd is buzzing with that special blend of curiosity and dread. A few children sit on their parents' shoulders, wide-eyed and oblivious. You wonder how long it will take for them to lose that innocence. You grip the rope in your hands and check the knot again. You're not a monster, at least not entirely. You don't want the man to suffer more than necessary. A clean break, a fast drop. That's your goal. But the gallows creak like they're warning you. Nothing about this is clean. As you tighten the noose, the monk meets your eyes and smiles. Not with fear, not with sarcasm, just peace. Do your job, he whispers. And you do. The trapdoor opens. The body drops. A collective gasp fills the air like a sucked-in breath that never gets released. And just like that, it's over. Or so it seems. Later, you walk back to your cottage, the memory of that smile haunting you. His words repeat in your mind like an echo in a cave. Do your job. But what if your job is something no one should have to do? Historians still argue whether executioners like you had any choice. Some say you were chosen by your village or sentenced to this life in exchange for a pardon. Others believe it was a job some actually wanted, for the coin, the power, the perverse respect. But what they all agree on is this: no one left the profession unchanged. At home, you peel off your boots and notice a splinter lodged deep in your heel. You grimace. Another small pain to carry. You've got plenty of those. You sit by the fire, poking at the embers with a stick, watching sparks rise and die. Tomorrow's task is already posted on the door of the sheriff's house. You don't want to look, but you will, and here's a fun little twist. The medieval belief in the executioner's curse. Villagers often thought your touch could rot food, sour milk, or cause crops to wither. A superstitious lot they'd cross themselves just seeing you walk by. Some even claimed your shadow brought bad dreams. You'd chuckle if it weren't so eerily close to the truth, so you keep to yourself. You eat alone. You drink from your own mug at the tavern when you dare go. And still, you hear the whispers. That's him, don't touch him, his soul's already gone, but you know better. You still feel pain. You still dream, though they're rarely pleasant. You still hope, somehow, that there's a way out of this. One day, as you sharpen your axe not for justice, but for appearances, you catch your reflection in the blade. It's not the same face you remember. The eyes are colder, more hollow. The jaw set tighter. You look like someone who's been underwater too long, half drowned, desperate for air. You remember when you were young, watching your first public hanging. You stood near the front, your hand clutching your father's belt. The crowd roared. The condemned wept. You didn't understand it then. You thought justice meant something noble. Now you know better. And yet, despite all this, part of you believes it still can. Maybe not today, maybe not for you, but for someone, a quirk of history most people don't know. In some towns, executioners were required to wear a red hood or carry a special staff so people would know not to touch them. Imagine walking through a market and every mother pulling her child away from your path. Don't look at him, they'd say. He carries death. You didn't choose this, but now you carry it. Every step, every job, every name scrawled on parchment. Each one adds a stone to the weight on your shoulders. You don't sleep well. You don't laugh easily. And you've long forgotten what it feels like to be welcomed. Still, you continue. Because stopping? That would mean facing something even worse than the crowd's disgust or the noble's commands. It would mean facing yourself, and that might be the hardest execution of all. The morning air feels strange today. Still, too still, you wake with a sense that something has changed. There is no knock at the door. No guards waiting at the edge of your dreams. No scroll nailed to the town wall with a name written in blood-colored ink. It's quiet, and it frightens you. You sit on the edge of your bed, rubbing your face, listening. No footsteps outside. No gossiping townspeople. No hammering in the blacksmith shop. You don't trust it. This town doesn't go quiet unless it's afraid. And fear, you've learned, always comes before something terrible. You light a candle, even though the sun has already risen. You want to feel warmth, even if it's only from wax and flame. As you sip from your wooden cup, a thought creeps in like smoke under a door. What if today is your turn? You've executed nobles, thieves, murderers, rebels, innocent men, guilty women, and more than once someone looked at you and said, "Your time will come too." Maybe they were right. Maybe someone finally decided justice should go both ways. You strap your knife to your belt. Not for defense. Just habit. You step outside and head toward the center of town. The streets are empty. Shops are shut. Windows closed. It feels like walking through a graveyard. Then you see it, a platform, new, taller than yours, built overnight in the main square. Not the gallows you use, but something ceremonial, grand, royal, the kind used when the king himself wants to make a point. There's a single chair in the middle, and chains, not a rope. You take a step back, not because of fear, but because of memory. You've heard rumors. The iron chair, a torture device dressed as a throne. Iron spikes hidden in the wood. If someone sits in it long enough, they bleed from places they didn't know. could bleed. You scan the crowd because now the crowd is here, silent, watching. Their eyes not on the platform but on you. You freeze. A guard steps forward. "Executioner," he says flatly. "You've been summoned. You want to laugh. You want to ask, summoned by who? But you already know. The king, or his men, or someone above the law who still believes in spectacle. You follow the guard not because you want to, but because you've learned that walking forward is often better than running away. At least when you walk, you have dignity. When you run, you die like a dog." They bring you to the steps of the platform. A scroll is unrolled. A man with a gold-trimmed robe reads from it Pretium. For crimes of carrying death, for poisoning the air with fear, for killing without remorse, the court of the king sentences the executioner to punishment by public judgment. Let the people decide. The people. You glance around. Faces you know. Faces that once cheered your steady hands. Faces that never stopped to ask, "Who gave you the order? Do you wish to speak?" The judge asks. You pause, then nod. You step forward. You don't shout. You don't cry. You simply say, "I did what I was told. And I did it better than most. Not because I wanted to, but because someone had to." A murmur ripples through the crowd. You look at them. You watched. You cheered. You threw stones at the condemned. You whispered to your neighbors about who deserved what, but you never looked at the man holding the rope. Until now, a woman in the crowd begins to cry. Not for you, maybe not for anyone, but for something. The judge holds up a hand. The people will decide. Shall he sit in the chair or shall he walk free? The silence is unbearable. Then an old man, bent with age, steps forward. He speaks slowly. "I remember when you spared my son a painful death. You made sure the rope was short. You looked him in the eye. You gave him mercy when no one else would." Another voice joins. A mother. "He buried my brother after. No one else would touch the body." A third voice. A baker. "He brings bread to the orphans when he can." You close your eyes. You didn't know they saw that. The judge looks stunned. The vote is spoken, not shouted. "Let him walk," the crowd says. "Let him walk." And just like that, your chains are gone. You step off the platform, slower than you climbed on. For the first time in years, you walk through the village not as a monster, not as a ghost, but as a man. You go home. That night, you dream of a field. No rope, no fire, just grass and sky and peace. You wake with tears on your face. But they're not heavy, they're soft, clean. Weeks pass, the gallows still stand, but no one uses them. The sheriff left town. The judge was replaced. You begin to teach children how to read. No one asked you to. You just do. You teach them about truth, about words, about choice. One day, a small boy asks, "Were you really the executioner?" You nod. "Was it scary?" You pause, then say, "Yes, but not in the way you think." "What do you mean?" You smile gently. "The scariest thing isn't death. It's forgetting what life feels like." The boy nods. He doesn't understand, but maybe someday he will. You go back to your garden. The lavender is growing again. The bees have returned. And for the first time in years, your hands are stained with dirt, not blood. You hear laughter from the village, real laughter, not the kind that hides fear. You stand, stretch your back, and whisper, "It's over," but in some ways it never really ends. The ghosts are still there. The names, the faces, the cold mornings, but now so is hope. You have survived history. You have survived the crowd. You have survived yourself. And in that survival, you have found something no one ever expected an executioner to have: a future. And maybe even redemption. You're not just standing outside anymore. You're inside the executioner's home now. It's not what you expect. There's no fireplace glowing with warmth, no hearty stew bubbling away in a cauldron. The room smells like stale bread, old leather, and something sharp in the air. Iron, maybe. Hanging from the wall is a faded cloth banner. No one visits, not even the priest. You sit on a wobbly wooden stool, listening. Outside, children laugh in the street, but never near this door. Inside it's quiet, except for the occasional creak of the beams or the nervous scuffle of a rat in the wall. The executioner lives alone or with someone who barely speaks. If he has a wife, she keeps to the shadows. If he has children, they don't take his name. Some people say executioners weren't allowed to enter churches. Others say they had their own pews, far from the others. Historians still argue whether these social rules were official laws or just long, cruel traditions. Your job follows you like a smell. You can't wash it off. When you go to the market, the baker serves you last. When your roof leaks, the thatcher tells you he's too busy. When your tooth aches, the barber looks away. One man can take lives, but he can't find someone to fix a hole in his boot. At night, your dreams are strange. You don't always remember them, but sometimes you wake up with your fists clenched and your jaw tight. Once you dreamed of a bell. Just a bell, ringing over and over. You woke up soaked in sweat, heart racing like you'd been running through the forest. The town pays you, sure. They even give you some land, outside the town gates, near the muddy stream where no one wants to fish. It's yours, but you're not allowed to sell it. Not really. No one wants land that once belonged to the killer. You grow onions and cabbage. You learn to be alone. And yet there are moments of strange peace. You learn to whittle. You carve faces into bits of wood, some laughing, some screaming. You don't know why. Maybe it's your way of holding on. Maybe it's your way of letting go. Sometimes an old soldier visits. He lost a leg in the war, and he doesn't flinch when he sees your tools. You sit in silence together, passing a bottle between you. He tells you stories of battlefields and burning wagons. You don't tell him anything. He never asks. It's the closest thing to friendship you've got. One day a priest does knock on your door. You're shocked. He steps in nervously, holding a little silver cross. You expect a lecture. Instead, he offers you bread and a quiet word. He says you carry something heavy. I see that. You don't reply. You don't know how. But after he leaves, you hold the bread in your hands for a long time. You don't eat it. You just sit with it as if it might speak. The townspeople need you, but they'll never admit it. They pretend not to see you. But when there's an uprising, when there's betrayal, they come knocking. We need your help, they say, eyes down. There's a name on the list. You don't nod. You just gather your tools. You've learned not to speak when duty calls. You keep a journal. No one knows. Inside, the pages are messy and stained. Sometimes it's just a word, cold. Sometimes it's a date. Sometimes it's a dream. You're not a poet, but the ink helps. You write things like, he cried for his mother, or the crowd was louder this time. Your hand shakes when you write, but you never stop. Your clothes smell of smoke and old iron. You wash them in the river, far from town. One day, a child sees you and waves. You wave back, almost smiling. Then the mother grabs the child and pulls them away. You go back to scrubbing. The river takes its time. You build a scarecrow in your field. Just an old shirt and a bag of hay. But you give it a name, Thom. You talk to it sometimes. You tell it stories. Tom never judges. He just stands there, silent and strong, like you wish you could be. Your tools hang on the wall like shadows. You clean them, oil them, sharpen them. Not out of love, out of fear. Dull tools make bad ends, and bad ends make worse memories. One winter, the snow traps you inside. You run out of wood. You burn the chair. Then the table. You think about the journal, but you can't do it. That's the only thing that listens. You age fast. Your back aches, your hands stiffen, but they still call on you. One more time, they say. Always one more. You wonder who will bury you when you go. Probably no one. Still, you stay. You endure. Not because you love the job, not because you enjoy the solitude, but because someone must do it, and it might as well be someone who feels the weight. And when the town sleeps, and the frost clings to the windows, and your hands tremble from cold or memory or maybe both, you whisper to Tom, "Still here?" He doesn't answer, but you didn't expect him to. The final winter comes quietly. There is no announcement, no special snow, just a slow settling of silence. You don't notice at first, but the ache in your hands lasts longer now. Your breath fogs more heavily. You sleep more. Dream less. One morning, a boy knocks on your door. You don't recognize him. He wears a red scarf and has dirt on his nose. "They told me to find you," he says, eyes big and scared. They say you're the only one who can do it. You don't ask what, you already know. The name is written on a slip of paper, small and thin like a prayer. A prayer. The man is a thief, they say. He stole from the mayor, not bread, not firewood. Gold. From the man who already has the most. That's how it always is. The powerful need you to stay powerful. You walk with the boy back to the edge of the town square. He doesn't speak, you're glad. Talking makes things real. When you reach the platform, it's still there, weathered, creaking, but standing. You run your hand over the wood. It knows you. You know it. The rope you used before is gone. You bring a new one. You tie it carefully, like always. Loop, pull, tighten. Your fingers still remember. Muscle memory does not forget. But this time you pause. You look at the sky. It's gray. It's always gray. The town begins to gather, not as many as before. People are tired of death, or maybe of pretending they're not part of it. But they come. They always come. Even if they look away, the thief is brought forward. Young, barely older than the boy who knocked on your door. His hands shake, but he tries to smile. You see his fear, his shame, his stubbornness. You've seen it before. Every face is different, but every end is the same. You give him the choice, blindfold or not. He chooses no. He wants to see. Most don't. The crowd waits. You hear whispers. Someone coughs. Someone sobs. Someone laughs. Nervous, high-pitched, ugly. You hear it all. It sticks to your bones. Your hand touches the lever. For a moment you freeze. Not out of fear, not guilt. Just tiredness. So much tiredness. Your body is an old cart and the weight is too heavy. Then you do it. Quick. Clean. Always clean. Ishun shirsho boggle, fanku tu bekans. The body drops. The rope pulls tight. The feet stop moving. The boy cries. Somewhere, a woman screams. You step back, it's done, but something is different. This time, no one cheers. No one says thank you. No one spits. No one throws stones. They just leave, quiet, slow, heads down, like ghosts drifting away. You stand there alone for a long time. The wind bites your cheeks. The platform creaks beneath you. You can't move. Your legs won't let you. Later, you sit by your fire. The journal is open in your lap. You write, "He looked at me." That's all. That's enough. That night, Tom falls over. The wind takes him. You don't fix him. Maybe he's tired too. A week passes. Then another. No one knocks. No one sends word. No names. No lists. No children with red scarves. Just silence. You walk through the field. The snow is thinner now. The onions did not survive. The cabbage froze. But still you walk. The wind whispers through the trees. You listen. One evening, a letter arrives, tied with string, no seal, no return. Inside, one sentence, "You are no longer needed." That's it. No goodbye, no thanks, no coin, just that. You stare at it for a long time. Then you place it in the journal between two pages. You don't burn it. You don't tear it. It belongs there. It's part of the story. Spring comes slow. You sit on your broken chair, watching the sun try to be brave. Birds return. Flowers, too. Not in your garden, but in the wild. You notice them now. You never did before. You hear music one night, from far away, a wedding maybe, or a festival. You sit in your doorway listening. You smile. You don't know why. It just feels right. Your body is older now. The hands that once held the sword now shake when holding a spoon. You drop things. You forget things. But you remember faces. Every single one. One morning you wake up and can't move your legs. It's not sudden. It's like your body has said enough. You accept it. You don't cry. You just lie there, breathing. A neighbor finds you, not a friend, not family, just a face you've seen. He brings soup. He says nothing, but he sits beside you for hours. Sometimes that's enough. You ask him one thing. What do they call me now? He looks confused. You mean your name? You nod. They don't call you anything, he says softly. You're just the old man on the hill. The old man on the hill. It's not a title. It's not shame. It's not glory. It's freedom. You sleep more. You dream again. The bell comes back, but it's soft now, distant, not angry. Just gentle. And then one night you see them, all of them, the people, the ones who cried, the ones who begged, the ones who forgave, the ones who didn't. They're not angry. They don't speak. They just stand around your bed watching. You close your eyes. You whisper, still here. And you go. In the end, you were a man, just a man. Not evil, not holy, not hero, not villain. Just a man who did the job no one wanted, who carried the weight so others didn't have to. And now the rope hangs empty. But the story? The story remains. The town square smells like wet straw, burnt meat, and the cold, metallic scent of iron chains. You stand near the center of it, but your eyes drift to the wooden structure ahead, the gallows, still damp from yesterday's rain. A rope sways gently in the wind like it's got a memory of its own. Fixace own. A familiar weight pulls on your shoulders. Not just the tools you carry, but something heavier. A silence settles. Not from peace, but from the waiting. The townsfolk don't cheer this time. Some don't even show up anymore. This isn't a spectacle anymore. It's just life. Your life. You feel the eyes before you see them. The condemned stares up at you, barely older than a boy. He trembles, but there's defiance behind the fear. You hate this part, the waiting. The priest mutters prayers that neither of you really hear. You try to focus on the task, rope strength, trapdoor trigger, wind direction, you want it clean, fast, as painless as you can make it, but you know the stories. You've heard the jokes, the hangman's dance, the twitching, the flailing, the ones who take minutes to die. That's why you test the knots again, once more. You always do. The truth is, you're not just executing people, you're managing expectations. The townspeople expect justice. The authorities expect obedience. And the condemned? They expect you to get it right. No one says that part out loud, but it lingers. One scholarly debate among historians centers on the methods used to make hangings quicker and more humane. Was the long drop method a compassionate invention or a mechanical efficiency designed for cleaner public relations? No one quite agrees. Some say it was introduced in the Sher-Joth century. Others argue it existed in some medieval pockets far earlier, hidden in silence and shame. The crowd holds its breath. You nod to the assistant. The lever creaks. The trapdoor gives way. A thud. No sound. No flailing. Just stillness. You close your eyes, just for a second, and exhale. That's all anyone will remember. Not the fear. Not the tears. Just the drop. But you will remember it all. After the body is cut down and handed off to the gravedigger, you walk slowly through the side alley where the wall is stained from a century of such tasks. The people who passed through this job before you, they left no journals, no family crest, no carved initials. They just did their job, one rope at a time, until no one remembered their names. except maybe the executioner's tower. It's a squat thing made of gray stone with a door that doesn't quite shut. You go there sometimes when the world is too loud. The walls are thick. The echo of your own breath comforts you. You've carved tally marks into the wood, more than 100 now. Not of kills, of weeks. You're counting down to something. You're not sure what. Inside that quiet, cold space, you recall a peculiar tale. One that historians often debate the truth of. A traveling hangman, his face always hidden by a mask, was said to have created a perfect, almost scientific drop equation. Legend says he calculated the victim's height, weight, and neck strength so the rope would break the neck instantly. Humane, precise. Some say he passed this knowledge down to only one apprentice before disappearing. Others say he was just a ghost story used to make apprentices feel better. You shake your head. No such luxury for you? Just your own calculations, your own errors, and the ghost of the boy's stare, still fresh in your mind. Later that night, as you eat a stew made from yesterday's meat and today's regrets, your fingers ache. You notice calluses on your palms, deeper than before. Not from work, but from gripping the railing during each execution, as if bracing yourself against the wind of guilt. You hear the church bell ring faintly in the distance. Midnight. You wonder who's awake right now. Who else carries a burden too heavy to sleep? Some say executioners are monsters. Some say they're servants. You're starting to think you're just a mirror. You reflect the worst of people back at them. And that might be the most exhausting part of all morning breaks, but it doesn't feel like a new day. The sky is pale. The sun rises without color. You sit by the small fire inside your stone cottage near the execution grounds. You used to sit close to the flame. Now you sit further back. The warmth feels too sharp on your skin. You've grown used to the cold. It's strange, but pain becomes normal if you feel it long enough. Even silence becomes a sound. You eat your bread without taste. It's hard as rock, you chew it anyway. You stare out the window. A blackbird hops across the stone wall. It looks at you like it knows, like it understands. You remember a man who once screamed your name, not in hate, in begging. He shouted, "Please, I didn't do it." You remember his voice more than his face. You lowered the hood over your face so he couldn't see your eyes. But he did. He looked right through the cloth, right into your soul. You still wonder if he was guilty or innocent. You'll never know. No one ever knows the full truth, not even the law. But the rope doesn't care. People like to believe it's simple. Right or wrong, crime or punishment. But the truth you've learned is that punishment often comes first. Truth comes later, sometimes too late. That's why the job is heavy, not just on the back, but on the heart. You step outside and see the cart arriving. A man is sitting in the back. Tied, he's quiet. He's not fighting. That's worse than screaming. It means he's already left his body. You've seen it before. People leave themselves before you even touch the rope. You don't blame them. A boy walks by the cart. He stares too long. His mother pulls him away and whispers, "Don't look." But he already has, and he'll remember. You were once that boy. You touch the wooden post outside your cottage. It's cracked and worn. Your father once stood here, not as an executioner, as a blacksmith. He shaped swords, not used them. But one day there was a shortage of clean hands, and a noble offered him a coin. Too many criminals, too few willing to do the work. That's how it starts. A little job, a little silence, a little pay. And one day it's your name on the list, Master of Justice. That's what they call it. But you know better. There's little justice in it. You walk slowly to the gallows. The steps creak beneath your boots. They always creak. It feels like the wood remembers every soul that passed over it. The town bell rings. not for joy, for order. The people gather, quiet, tired. Even the children don't cheer anymore. They know it's not a game. The man kneels before you. His head is low. His lips move. Maybe he's praying. Maybe he's apologizing. Maybe he's just whispering to someone he'll never see again. You adjust the rope. You check the knot. You feel your fingers shaking. You hide it. You always hide it. A clean job is a quiet job. That's your rule. That's the only mercy you have left. You pull the lever. The silence after the drop is always worse than the scream. It's the sound of people pretending they didn't just watch a life end. It's the sound of boots on dirt, of eyes looking away, of hands holding children close. You step down. You walk away. You don't look back. That night, you sit by the fire again. This time, no bread. Just water. You stare into the flames and see faces. Always faces. Some crying. Some silent. Some laughing, even as the rope tightens. Madness comes in many forms. So does peace. You think about leaving. About walking into the woods and never coming back. But where would you go? Who would you be? You're not just a man anymore. You're a symbol. And symbols don't get to run. Once, a traveler came to town. He asked you, what's it like, ending lives? You told him the truth. It's not the ending that's hard, you said. It's what stays behind. He nodded. Then he left. Maybe he was a writer. Maybe just a man curious about darkness. You've learned not to ask questions anymore. The next day, a woman comes to your door. Her brother was executed last month. She doesn't scream. She doesn't cry. She just stands there with a small basket of bread. I thought you might be hungry, she says. You don't know what to say. She leaves it at your feet and walks away. You eat that bread slowly. Every bite is soft, made with care. You cry for the first time in weeks. Maybe even monsters can be shown kindness. You dream that night. You're in a room full of mirrors. Each one shows a different face. All the people you've executed, they don't move, they just stare. Then, one by one, they turn into you. Every mirror, your face, your eyes, your hands. You wake up with sweat on your neck and guilt in your chest. You go to the church the next day. You don't speak, you just sit. The priest nods at you. He says nothing. He knows you have no words left. Later, a letter arrives from the king's court. They need an executioner in another city, a bigger one, more work, more pay, more silence. You stare at it for hours, then you burn it. You may be many things, but you are not endless. That night you write a letter. That night you write a letter, not to the king, not to your town, to the boy who once looked too long. You don't know his name. You just write what you wish someone had told you. This job is not strength. It is sadness. If you ever see the rope walk away, don't listen to coin. Don't follow silence. Follow kindness. Always. You fold it. You leave it under the gallows. Maybe someone will find it. Maybe they won't. But you had to say it, because that is your last act, your final mercy, not with rope, but with words, and that, you hope, will be enough. You shift your weight in the chair again, the creak of the wooden frame echoing faintly as you lean in closer, curious now. Because tonight you're not just a medieval executioner. You're about to be something even weirder, a part-time ghost buster, spiritual advisor, and unofficial demon hunter. Yep. Welcome to your side gig. See, in the Middle Ages, death wasn't just death. People believed in ghosts. They believed the soul could get stuck between heaven and hell. Sometimes a tortured spirit lingered, wailing near graveyards or hovering above gallows. And guess what? When the town priest didn't want to deal with it, or worse, when the townspeople thought the priest couldn't handle it, they called you. You the guy with the axe and the rope and the short fuse? You never signed up for this. But here you are. lantern in hand, trudging through foggy fields at midnight. You hear rustling in the trees, a sound you tell yourself is just the wind. But deep down you remember the story, the one about the thief you hanged last winter who never got a proper burial. People say they still hear him whispering for mercy when the moon is full. So now you're out here not to kill but to calm, to speak words over an unmarked grave, to sprinkle holy water you don't entirely believe in, to dig up a corpse and rebury it the right way, because old Nan swears that will stop the milk from souring and the children from coughing. Your job just got weirder. You mutter the words, you do what they ask. Sometimes it works. Sometimes the crying stops, other times it gets worse. Chickens start dropping dead. People say it's your fault, that you didn't tie the burial shroud tightly enough, or that you whispered the prayer too softly. There's no winning here. You try to joke about it later. Sorry, guess I flubbed my ghost chant. But nobody laughs. Instead, they look away, like you've touched something cursed. Like it might cling to you and then jump to them, and maybe they're not wrong. Because you've started seeing things too, not real things, probably, but shapes in the dark, a face that doesn't belong, a shadow that moves against the wind. Once, you saw a child standing by your doorstep in the rain. When you opened the door, there was no one there, just muddy footprints. Historians still argue whether medieval executioners were ever officially tasked with spiritual rites. Some records mention them performing unclean rituals, stuff no one else would do. Others say this is folk legend, not fact. But the line between truth and myth in your world is very, very blurry. Especially when you start to believe the myths yourself. There's a charm you keep in your pocket now. It's just a bone wrapped in linen, blessed by a wandering monk who drank too much ale and never returned. You tell yourself it's nonsense, but you never leave home without it because you've seen too many things, heard too many stories, felt the weight of 100 final breaths, and not all of them went peacefully. Here's the thing no one tells you about death. It's sticky. It clings. It follows you home like fog on your boots. It seeps into your dreams, your clothes, your sense of safety. You wash your hands until they're raw, but the smell doesn't leave. You try to sleep, but you hear the bells again. It's not just ghosts that haunt you. It's people. Mothers who scream when they see your face in the market. Children who cross themselves when you walk by. The man who spat at you last week and said, "You're cursed, and you're cursing us all." You wanted to say, "I didn't choose this," but instead you went home and sat in the dark. Some nights you get drunk just to make the whispers stop, and some nights you sit with the ghosts and whisper back. You tell them you're sorry. You tell them you were just doing your job. You ask if they can forgive you. You never hear an answer, so you keep working, keep swinging the axe, keep tying the noose, keep pouring oil over old bones when someone thinks a spirit hasn't found peace. You're not just an executioner. You're a midwife to the afterlife, a doorman for the dead. It's lonely here. A fringe record from Eastern Europe tells of a man named Kolya, known as the Whisperer. He was said to sing to the condemned the night before their death and speak to their spirits the night after. Some say he was a madman. Others say he could truly see the soul. Whether you believe in Kolya or not, you've started humming now too. Just softly. A tune you can't remember learning. You hum when you walk past graves, when you sharpen your blade. When the wind howls louder than it should, maybe it helps. Maybe it doesn't, but you do it anyway. And that's the truth about this job. It's not just blood and screams and bone. It's memory. It's weight. It's knowing that death doesn't always end where you think it does. Sometimes it lingers, it speaks your name. It's morning now. The fog is lifting. The village is waking. Roosters crow. Dogs bark. And someone is already calling your name, not with fear, not with anger, but with need. You step outside, boots thick with mud and memory, and see her, a woman standing at your gate, eyes red from crying, dress torn at the sleeve. She holds something in her arms, a small bundle, a child not dead, but close. She pleads with you, not as an executioner, but as something else, a last hope, a bringer of justice. A man who walks with death and maybe, just maybe, knows how to delay it. You freeze. You want to say, I can't help. You want to say, I'm not a healer. But then you see the bruises. You see the fear in her eyes. You see the man standing far off behind her, pretending not to watch, with clenched fists and a face that knows no shame. And something inside you changes. You open the gate, you take the child, you step into a role no one taught you, but one you feel in your bones. Protector, witness, shield. This is not your usual work, but maybe this is what your work is becoming. You clean the child's wounds. You whisper to him like you whispered to the dying, not to say goodbye, but to say, hold on, just a little longer. You give the woman food, a chair, a moment of safety. And later that day, when the angry man returns, because of course he does, you stand between them. He threatens. You don't blink, you've faced worse. You've faced death itself. And in a strange, silent way, it has made you brave. He doesn't stay long. He looks into your eyes and sees something cold and ancient, something that has watched 100 last breaths. He leaves without saying another word, and the village notices. They notice that you didn't hang him. You didn't hurt him. You simply stood unshaken. And he left. They start to wonder what else you might be capable of, and so the requests begin to change. People still ask you to bury the dead, to keep ghosts away. But they also begin asking you to help with the living. A boy is stealing bread. What should we do? A neighbor won't return a borrowed cow. Can you speak to him? They bring you conflicts. Quiet ones. Small ones. The kind that would have once gone to the priest or the elder. But somehow they come to you now. You don't know what to say, but you listen. And that, it turns out, is enough. You've learned to hear what people don't say. You've watched the moment a man realizes he's about to die. You know the look of regret, the sound of a truth too late. And that makes you something rare, someone who understands consequences. In a world full of cruelty, people need someone like that. So you become something new, not just the executioner, not just the whisperer, but the weight-bearer, the one who carries the dark so others don't have to. It changes you. You start to walk differently, slower, more grounded. People give you more space, but they also meet your eyes more often. Some even nod. The children stop running from you. One little girl leaves a daisy on your doorstep. You don't know how to react to kindness anymore, but you're learning. You fix your roof. You carve new legs for your chair. You sharpen your axe, not because you need it, but because the act reminds you of your old life and you don't want to forget. Forgetting would mean denying what you've done. And denial is poison. No, you won't forget, but you will grow. You start planting herbs, not just for cooking, but for medicine. You talk to the midwife. You ask about pain and fevers and how to help someone sleep without fear. She's surprised at first, but she teaches you, and soon people come for your herbs. Not everyone, not most, but some. And some is enough. Because in a world like this, where people die young, and sorrow walks beside every birth, just being willing to help can change everything. One night there's a fire. It starts in the baker's hut and spreads fast. You run toward the smoke. Not away, you join the bucket line. You shout for more water. You wrap wet cloth around your mouth and push through the flames to pull out an old man who couldn't move on his own. When the fire dies, the people look around at what's left, and they see you covered in ash, breathing hard, alive, and more than that, human. Something breaks that day, or maybe something heals. The baker's wife brings you soup the next day. You accept it. You even smile. You never used to smile. The village doesn't forget the other things, the hangings, the blood. The rope burns on the condemned, but they start seeing the rest too. They start seeing you. For the first time, you begin to feel like a part of the place you've lived in all your life. And it terrifies you because you don't know how long it will last, because you know how fragile peace is, how easily it slips through fingers. But for now, you take it. You breathe it in like morning fog and let it fill your lungs, not because the job is done, but because for today no one is asking, and for the first time in years you take a walk. Not to a grave, not to a gallows, but just through the woods, just to feel the world turn. There's a breeze, there's bird song, there's a strange quiet in your bones. You sit beneath a tree, you think about the first man you ever killed. You think about the first child who ever smiled at you. You think about the line between those two moments and how you're learning to walk it. It's not redemption, you know better than to believe in clean slates, but it is something close, a kind of balance, a kind of peace, and in a life like yours, that is no small miracle. You're awake before the sun again, not that you ever truly sleep soundly anymore. Not with the dreams. Today, your orders take you beyond the gallows and into the shadowy woods just outside the town's edge. A nobleman wants to make an example of a bandit chief who's been robbing wealthy travelers, but he wants it done privately, no spectacle. Just a message. So you sharpen your tools as dew clings to your boots. The forest is dense, and the fog creeps between trees like whispered curses. You ride out with 2 guards, but it's your responsibility to finish the job. No scaffold, no audience. Just you, your prisoner, and the trees. The birds don't even bother singing here. The bandit chief is already tied to a thick post, arms behind him, kneeling. He spits at your feet when he sees you, and you pretend not to care. But something about this job feels heavier. Maybe it's the silence. Or maybe it's the look in his eyes. Anger, yes, but also clarity. He tells you he used to be a soldier. He lost everything to taxes, so he took to the road. Historians still argue whether these outlaw bands were more criminal or more desperate rebel. Either way, it doesn't change what you're paid to do. You kneel, pull out your blade. The guards stand back. There's no crowd to pretend for, no church bells to drown out the noise. Only the steady rhythm of your own breath and the pulse in your ears. His final words are not curses, but a quiet, do it fast. You try really hard. But in the woods, there's no block, no scaffold, just a stump and gravity. And gravity isn't always kind. The job is messy, more than usual. Later, when you clean your tools with river water and wipe your hands on moss, you wonder if the trees remember these things, if the forest keeps score. Some locals believe trees absorb violence. That's why old woods feel haunted. You laugh once, a short bark of a sound haunted, that would be a mercy. At least then you'd have company. Back in town, no one thanks you. The nobleman nods once from his horse and tosses you a pouch. It clinks. You count it later. Too much for this kind of job, maybe guilt money, maybe hush money, maybe both. You sleep that night under a heavy blanket. But it doesn't keep the cold out, or the memory of the forest, or the way the man looked up at you, steady, not afraid. And you used to believe that fear was your tool. Oh, Ellen. But now, more often than not, you're the one carrying it, wrapped around your chest like iron chains. And it's getting harder to breathe still. You get up the next morning. You always do. Because no one else will. Because the job must go on. Because some part of you believes if you keep moving, keep doing, maybe you won't have to think too hard about what you've become. But you do. Every time you pass a mirror, every time your fingers twitch in your sleep, every time a child crosses the street to avoid you, and yet, here you are. Still standing. Still sharpening. Still walking into the woods when no one else dares. Maybe one day they'll remember that. Maybe not. But you do. The morning after the Forrest execution, you walk through the town square like a ghost. People glance at you, then quickly look away. You're used to it. Fear and shame follow you like a second shadow. You were once just a man. Now you're a reminder of pain. There's a boy selling bread. You used to buy from him when his mother ran the stall. But now he stiffens when he sees you. His eyes widen, his hands shake, and he turns his back. You keep walking. You don't want bread today. You don't want anything, not food, not words, just silence. You reach your workshop. It's small, dark. Tools hang on the walls like weapons in a soldier's tent. There's a wooden bench stained with old blood, a stool, a bucket, a small cracked mirror. You sit, you stare. The man in the mirror doesn't blink. He looks older than you remember. His skin is rough, eyes dull, beard patchy, mouth like stone. He doesn't look dangerous. He looks tired, lost. You think about the first time you took the job. You were poor, hungry. You told yourself it was temporary. You'd save some money. You'd get out. But that was years ago. The gold kept coming, so did the tasks. People think torturers enjoy it. They're wrong. You don't enjoy it. Somewhere along the line, enduring became surviving. And surviving became your only skill. There's a knock at the door. You flinch. Another knock. You open it. It's a messenger from the castle. A boy, thin and pale. He holds a scroll with a wax seal. You take it, nod, and shut the door without a word. You don't need to read it yet. You already know what it says. Another job, another body, another ghost. You leave the scroll on the table. You open your toolkit. You check the ropes. You wash your hands. You light a candle. You sharpen a knife. You sit again. You stare at the flame. It flickers. It dances. It doesn't care who you are or what you've done. It just burns. You remember the woman from last winter. She was accused of poisoning her husband. Rich man. Ugly temper. She confessed under questioning, but you knew. You saw it in her face. She confessed to stop the pain, not because she was guilty, but the judge didn't care. So you did your part, and she burned. People watched, cheered, some cried. Not for her, for themselves. You stood there, face blank, heart silent. When it was over, you walked home and vomited behind the bakery. Some nights you still see her, in the smoke. In your dreams, sometimes she speaks. Sometimes she just looks at you. You want to tell her you're sorry. You want to say you didn't mean to. But your mouth stays shut, even in dreams. You finally break the wax on the scroll. The new job is different. The prisoner is a child. 12 years old, caught stealing from the noble kitchens. You freeze. There must be a mistake. But no, his crime is written clearly. Attempted theft, third offense, punishment, severe public correction. You sit down hard. You breathe, in, out, in, out. You think about running. You think about saying no. But where would you go? What would you do? You don't have a life outside this role. No friends, no family, no land. You are the job still. This is different. He's just a child. You remember being 12, hungry, desperate, cold. You stole bread once. Got caught. The baker let you go. If I see you again, I'll beat you, he said. You never stole again. You also never forgot that kindness. You leave the workshop, walk the long road to the castle. The guards know you. They open the gates. Their eyes flicker with unease. You're the necessary evil. Inside, the boy is chained to a post in the dungeon. He's small, thin, clothes torn, face dirty. He sees you and shrinks back. I'm sorry, he whispers. He repeats it. Over and over. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. You sit beside him. You don't say anything. Minutes pass. finally you whisper, "I know." He looks up, confused. "I know you're sorry." You stand. You walk to the guard. You say, "Tell the Lord I refused this one." The guard laughs. Then he sees your face. "You're serious?" You nod. He says, "They'll throw you in the cell next." You nod again. He sighs. "Go." "I'll say the boy escaped." You stare at him. He shrugs. Even monsters get tired. You take the boy's chains off. You walk him through the back gate. You give him your food pouch, your cloak, a silver coin. "Walk east." You say, "Don't stop, don't come back." He nods. He runs. You watch until he disappears into the trees, then you turn around. And wait, the guard doesn't tell. Not yet, but word spreads. You feel it in the silence. People whisper. They look longer now. Not just with fear, but with something else. Maybe confusion, maybe pity, maybe hope. You're not sure yet. You return to your workshop. You hang your tools. You clean the bench. You wash the blood from the wood. It doesn't all come off, but some of it does. You light another candle. You stare into the flame again. It still flickers, but now it feels warmer. You don't know what comes next, but you've done one good thing. And maybe that's the start of more, or maybe it's your end. You're ready for either, because for the first time in years, you feel human again, and it hurts. But it also feels like waking up. You lie on your bench, you close your eyes, and for the first time in a long, long while, you sleep, not deeply, not peacefully, but honestly, and sometimes that's enough. You find yourself seated outside a cramped cottage, the late summer breeze, sticky with the scent of rotting cabbage. The executioner's home is nothing fancy. Mud walls, a thatched roof, chickens squawking nearby. And tonight, you're not working. You're just waiting. That's the life of an executioner during peacetime. You still eat. You still sleep. You still wash your shirt. Well, maybe once a month. But you're always waiting for the next ring of the town bell. Always waiting for the knock. Because even when there are no executions, your job never really ends. You are still a marked man. People cross themselves when they pass you. Mothers steer their children behind them. The local priest blesses your house in silence, barely glancing at you. They hand you your vegetables with trembling fingers and won't look you in the eye. It's as if the blood clings to you even when you're clean. Especially when you're clean. You're technically part of the justice system, but don't expect a seat at the Lord's table. You're not a knight, you're not a clerk, you're a necessary monster, something between a butcher and a curse. Some towns even force you to live outside the walls. If they're feeling generous, they build your home right on the edge of the cemetery. Because, dead people are your closest friends, the loneliness isn't just sad, it's dangerous. You don't have allies, no drinking buddies, no godparents for your kids. When a riot breaks out or the wrong noble gets insulted, guess who's first on the chopping block? That's right, the man who knows how to use an axe. Still, you're not entirely without purpose. People do come to you for animal slaughter, bone setting, sometimes even for herbal remedies. Strange, right? The same hands that swing the sword are trusted to stitch up a wound. Historians still argue whether executioners were viewed more like witches or like medics, especially in rural areas. One German record even shows an executioner doubling as a midwife. That's some resume. At night, though, the real ghosts come out, not the haunted kind, your own memories. You lie awake hearing the sound of the last man's scream. You try to forget how his wife begged. You try to forget the smell, and worst of all, you remember the eyes, the way they looked at you, the way they didn't understand why you, a human, were doing this to another human. Sometimes you write. A few executioners kept journals. Franz Schmidt, for example, detailed every execution he ever did, almost slide over. lasts for years. His diary is one of the most detailed historical accounts we have, and it's full of contradictions. Guilt, pride, horror, routine. A man trying to be more than his job, trying to leave behind more than just broken necks and split spines. You don't write, not tonight. Instead, you sit on your wooden stool and feed the fire. Your boots are muddy, your back aches. There's a hole in your roof and rainwater's dripping into a bowl. You watch the steam rise and imagine what it's like to be a farmer, or a baker, or anyone else. And then the knock, soft but urgent. 2 quick taps, you sigh. You already know. Someone's been sentenced. The knock on the door echoes like a bell in your chest. You do not answer it right away. You sit there, staring at the fire. You let the steam rise. You let the silence stretch, even though you already know what's on the other side of the door. You know it is the messenger, maybe the town guard, maybe the clerk, someone who brings the words that will turn your day into blood. Finally, you rise. Your legs are stiff. Your knees crack. You open the wooden door and look into the eyes of a boy, no more than 15. His cheeks are red. His eyes are wide. He does not speak at first. He just hands you a scroll tied with a dirty red ribbon. Then he backs away. Quickly, like he touched something cursed, you close the door. You sit back down. You place the scroll on the table and stare at it. Sometimes the scroll tells you when, sometimes where, sometimes who, and sometimes why. You untie the ribbon, slowly, carefully. You read, tomorrow at dawn, Market Square. Theft and attempted escape. Sentence, hanging, you do not know the name. Just young male, age 21. You sigh. You fold the scroll and toss it into the fire. The paper crackles. The ink burns. You know what to do. You've done it 100 times before. You will sleep early. You will wake in the dark. You will wear black. You will sharpen the blade. Not because you need it this time, but because it is part of your rhythm. Part of your piece. The blade is your ritual. You think about the boy. 21. Barely a man. Probably poor, probably hungry, probably stupid, probably scared. You wonder if he has a mother. If she cried. If she will come tomorrow. If she will scream your name. If she will spit. You get ready. You pack your tools. Even though it's a hanging and you won't need most of them. You bring the short knife, the thick gloves, the hood, the rope. Always your own rope. You don't trust theirs. Some towns try to save money. Cheap rope means slow death. You don't want slow death. Not for him. Not for anyone. Sleep doesn't come easy. It never does before a hanging. You lie in your bed. You watch the roof. The moon shines through the cracks. You hear the wind. You hear your heartbeat. You try not to think. But your brain speaks anyway. It whispers memories, faces, sounds. It asks you questions you cannot answer. At last your eyes close, and then open again. It is still dark, but you feel it in your bones. It is time. You rise. You wash your face with cold water. You eat dry bread. You say nothing. You walk through the sleeping village. Deep gray. The ground is soft and wet. A few men are already in the square, building the platform. They nod at you, but do not speak. You nod back, you check the rope, you tie the knots, you check the trap door, you check it twice. The sound it makes when it opens and shuts is sharp and hollow, like a final breath. And people begin to gather, slowly, silently. Some come with bread, some with babies, some with stones in their pockets. Just in case. You see the mayor, the priest, the guard, they look clean, they look nervous. And then he comes, the boy, his hands are tied. The boy, his hands are tied. His feet drag. His shirt is torn. His mouth is shut. But his eyes, they are wide, so alive, so afraid. You meet his eyes for a moment. Just a moment. You nod at him. A small nod. The kind you give a man before a storm. You walk to the platform together. You help him up. He stumbles. You catch him. He flinches when you touch him. You say, "It will be quick." He does not answer. The priest says a prayer. The crowd murmurs. The mayor reads the charge. Theft. Escape. Law of the land. Justice must be seen. You place the noose around his neck. You tighten it. Not too tight. Not too loose. Just right. You step back. You meet his eyes again. You ask softly, "Any last words?" He opens his mouth. Then closes it. Then opens again. "I was hungry." That's all he says. That's all he needs to say. You pull the lever. The trapdoor opens. He falls. The rope snaps tight. His body jerks. His feet twitch. His eyes close, and it is done. The crowd gasps. Some turn away. Some watch until the end. Some throw curses. Some throw coins. And some throw flowers. You stand there. Still. Silent. You wait until the priest nods. Then you lower the body. You place it gently on the ground. You remove the rope. You cover the face. You walk away. You do not speak. You go home. Your boots are wet. Your hands are cold. Your back aches. You sit at your table. You not comling sit at the wall. You stare at the wall and you whisper, "He was hungry." You do not cry. You do not pray. You just sit because this is your life. This is the job. This is what it means to be the hand of justice in a world with no mercy. But somewhere inside, deep, deep down, a small voice whispers, "Maybe one day the world will not need men like you." And you wonder what kind of world that would be. You stare at the fire. You feed it one more log and wait for the next knock. It had been 3 days since the hanging. 3 long, silent days. You did not speak to anyone. You did not leave the house. You sharpened your blade again and again, though there was no need. You cooked stew. You watched the fire. You stared at the noose on the wall and wondered if you had done the right thing. Then on the 4th morning you heard footsteps. Not just 1 pair, 2, maybe 3. You reached for your small knife, not out of fear, but habit. When a knock came, it was gentle. Not urgent, not official, just quiet. You opened the door and saw a woman. She was older than you. Wrinkles near her eyes, dirt on her dress. And beside her a girl, maybe 10 years old, holding a small basket. The woman did not speak at first. She just stared. Then slowly she handed you the basket. Bread, apples, a small folded paper. You looked at her face again. Her lips trembled. "I am his mother," she said. You stood still. You said nothing. She didn't cry. She didn't scream. She just looked at you, looked through you, as if trying to find the man who had taken her son. "I'm not here to curse you," she whispered. "I just wanted you to know he was good. He stole. Yes. But he was good. He used to sing. He made his sister laugh. He helped me carry water." You nodded. A small nod. You had no words. The girl stepped forward. She looked up at you and asked, "Are you the death man?" You wanted to say no, but you couldn't lie. "Yes," you said. She stared for a while, then nodded like she understood something. She reached into the basket and pulled out a small wooden carving. A bird. Rough, but beautiful. "He made this," she said. "He was going to sell it." For bread, you took the bird. You held it gently in your palm. You said thank you. Then the woman and the girl left. You closed the door, you sat at your table, and for the first time in many years, your hand shook. That night you could not sleep. The bird sat on your table, watching you. You touched the rough wood and thought about the boy's voice. "I was hungry." Firstly, the next morning you walked to the mirror. You did not look in mirrors often, not anymore. But something pulled you there. You looked. What did you see? Not a monster, not a hero, just a man. Tired, worn, alone. You touched your face. You touched the white hairs on your chin. You looked into your own eyes, trying to find something. Strength, maybe, or a reason. Then behind you in the mirror you saw something, a shape. You turned quickly. Nothing. Just your room. The fire. The tools. The rope. The bird, but the feeling stayed and left only their breath. You sat down again. You took a deep breath. Then another, maybe it was time to stop, but who would take your place? The young ones? They had no hands for mercy. They enjoyed the blood. They turned it into a show. And the old ones? They had all left. Buried or broken, you sighed. Later that day, you walked into town. Slowly. Quietly. People watched you, as they always did. Some nodded. Some turned away. Some whispered, "You bought bread, salt." A bit of dried fish, the shopkeeper said. Saw the boy's mother visit. Brave of her, you said nothing. Ah, he said, she said you were kind. She said you made it quick. Still, you said nothing. Then he asked, "Do you think they'll hang the butcher's son next?" He stole from the noble's cart. You looked at him and asked, "Was he hungry?" The shopkeeper paused. "Maybe. I don't know." You nodded, then walked away. The sky was gray, the wind was cold. You walked past the square. The platform was still there. They hadn't taken it down yet. You stared at it for a while. The rope had been removed, but the shadow of it still hung in the air. A young boy sat on the edge of the platform, swinging his feet. You didn't recognize him. He looked at you and smiled. "Are you the rope man?" You sighed. "Yes," he asked. "Do you like it?" You didn't know what to say. "No," you said. "But I try to do it right." He nodded. "My father says you're better than the last one." "He made people suffer." You nodded again. The boy asked, "Why don't you smile?" You looked at him for a moment. "Because smiles are expensive," you said. He laughed. "That's funny." You almost smiled. Almost. You walked home slowly. You fed the fire. You stared at the bird. You placed it beside your knife. And then you did something strange. You opened a book. It had been many years since you read. The book was old, the pages yellow. But the words were still there. Stories of far places. Brave men. Kind women. Quiet heroes. Gentle wars. You read for hours, and you forgot for a little while who you were. Later that night, you dreamed. You dreamed of a world with no gallows, no ropes, no scrolls. You dreamed of fields, and children laughing, and a man walking through the town with a basket of bread, and a bag of carved wooden birds. And in the dream you were not the rope man, you were just a man. That morning you woke up with tears on your face. You let them fall, you did not wipe them away. Because something had changed, you didn't know what, but something. The scent of blood never really leaves your nose. Even when you walk through the town square on a quiet day, you swear you can still smell it on the cobblestones. As if the earth remembers too. The birds are quieter around the scaffold. Children avoid the spot altogether. And you walk with a strange limp now. Not from an old injury, but from something you can't really explain. Like your body's trying to shake off the weight of everything you've done. Every neck you snapped, every final scream you've heard. Your reputation has grown far beyond the village walls. People recognize your face now when you travel for executions. Not because you're famous, but because you've become a symbol of fear, of cruelty, or of justice, depending on who's telling the story. Even other executioners know your name. Some admire you. Others whisper rumors that you made a deal with the devil. One day, a young man is brought to you. He's barely more than a boy, accused of theft and assaulting a nobleman. You listen to the charges, nodding quietly. But something about him unsettles you. He doesn't cry or plead. He just stares at you calmly, as if he already knows your story, as if he's heard it all before. His eyes are sharp, almost sympathetic. You try not to think about it too much as you prepare the platform. The crowd is restless. A traveling bishop is in town. and he wants everything done by the book. That means a sermon first, then the punishment, then a prayer. You nod along politely, all while sharpening your blade just out of sight. When the time comes, the boy steps forward without resistance. He even smiles just a little. You hate that. You'd rather deal with fear than grace. You swing the sword cleanly, because of course you do. You always do. The crowd roars, the bishop blesses your work, and still you can't forget that smile. That night you can't sleep. You pace your small quarters, turning over the boy's face in your mind. You feel something strange pressing into your chest, like guilt wrapped in confusion. Historians still argue whether executioners felt true remorse, you think. But that question seems laughably distant now. You're not a textbook. You're a man who dreams of faces. You decide to walk through the village, under the moonlight. It's quieter at night, and the shadows seem less judgmental than the people. As you pass by the chapel, you hear soft chanting. You wonder if any of them are praying for yours. Further along, you pass the baker's shop. Remember her? The woman who once gave you a free loaf of bread and couldn't meet your eyes? She's inside now, humming to herself while shaping dough. She doesn't see you, but you see her. And for a moment, you remember what it felt like to be just a man in a village, not the blade of justice. You turn the corner and see something new, graffiti on the side of a wall, a crude drawing of a hooded figure holding a severed head. Underneath it, the words, "Justice is blind, but the hangman watches." You sigh. It's not even a good likeness. In the morning, you're called to the local abbey. A nun has died, and they want her to be buried quickly. They're digging the grave when you arrive, but that's not why they sent for you. It turns out one of the monks believes her death wasn't natural. There are marks on her neck. They think someone might have strangled her in the night. You're not sure what's worse, that they think you can help, or that you know exactly what those marks mean. You kneel beside the body and look closely. Rope burns, small ones, amateur work, definitely not yours. You suggest they question the groundskeeper. He's a quiet man, always watching from the shadows. They nod and begin their investigation. As you walk away, you feel oddly at peace. For once, you brought death no closer. Maybe you even helped prevent more. That night, you sit by the fire in your home, drinking weak ale and staring into the flames. Your dog snores at your feet. He's old now, too. Gray fur, cloudy eyes. But he still wags his tail when you come home, and sometimes that's enough. You remember your first day on the job. You were terrified. Your hands shook. You had to hide it. But you remember the way the older executioner looked at you. Half pity, half pride. Now you're that old man. You wonder who will replace you when it's time. A knock on your door. A messenger with a scroll. Another summons. Another sentence. Another village. You nod, take the scroll, and close the door behind you. No rest for the weary. Or the wicked. You lay in bed listening to the wind tapping at the shutters. Somewhere in the distance, an owl calls. You close your eyes and drift into sleep, hoping tonight, maybe, your dreams won't bring back the boy with the smile. The next morning you pack your tools again, rope, oil, sharpening stone, your hood. You don't need to check the scroll. They all say the same thing. Name, crime, time, location. There's a kind of pattern now, and you follow it like a tired song. Walk, sleep, swing, walk again. The road to the next town is rough, but your feet know it well. Every step kicks up dust that sticks to your boots, and your knees ache with every bend. The town you arrive in is small, poor. It's surrounded by muddy fields and broken fences. They don't look at you. That's common. But here it feels different. Not fear, not even anger, just resignation. They're used to bad things. You're just the latest. You ask where the execution will take place, and the old sheriff leads you to the town square. It's just a patch of packed dirt near a broken well. No platform, no gallows, no crowd yet. The sheriff shrugs. We don't see many of your kind out here, he says. We try to keep things quiet, you nod. Who is the condemned? The sheriff scratches his beard. Widow. Middle-aged. Stole bread. But it's not just the bread. She hit the baker when he tried to stop her. They say she used a rock. You stare at him. A rock? He shrugs again. Baker's got a broken arm. You feel a strange tightness in your chest, and she will hang for that? The magistrate said so. Well, law's the law. You ask to see her. The sheriff agrees, but warns you she's not like the others. She's calm. Too calm. The jail is just a wooden room behind the church. One cell. She's sitting on the floor, back straight, eyes closed. When you enter, she opens them slowly. No fear. No anger. Just tiredness. You're the headsman, she says. You nod. You've come to finish what the law started? You don't reply. I didn't mean to hurt him, she says softly. I hadn't eaten in days. And my daughter, she was crying all night. Her stomach was empty. I saw the loaf and I just took it. Why didn't you run? She chuckles. Where would I go? There's nowhere for people like me. My husband died last winter, fever. The land is dry. My hands are cracked and useless. But my daughter, she's still alive. I needed her to live. You clear your throat. Where is she now? With the church folk. They're feeding her. You sit in silence. The air smells like old wood and damp cloth. Finally, you say, I've killed men for less. She looks at you, and how do you live with that? You pause. You think about the boy with the smile. The nobles who spat at you while asking for quicker deaths. The songs children sing behind your back. I don't live with it, you say. I walk with it. Her lips twitch like she wants to smile, but the strength isn't there. Before you leave, she says, if you do it tomorrow, can you make it quick? Not for me. But so my daughter doesn't hear screams, you nod. You always do. That night you don't sleep much. You lie on the straw bed in the guest room, staring at the cracked ceiling. You think about your mother. She had hands like that woman, strong but rough from scrubbing and cooking. She raised you alone, never begged, never stole, but always tired. You remember the way she looked at you when you first told her about the job. She didn't speak for a whole day. She didn't speak for a whole day. And then finally she said, just don't forget who you are underneath. You're just not sure who that man is anymore. The next morning the town gathers. It's a small crowd, only about Cernser people, quiet. The child is there, clinging to a young nun's robes. You can't look at her for long. You set up the rope. The woman climbs the stool calmly. Her eyes are open. She meets your gaze. You whisper, thank you for your strength. She whispers back, thank you for your mercy. You pull the lever. No sound. No scream. Just silence. The nun takes the child away quickly. You stare at the rope for a long time after it's over. The sheriff pats your shoulder. Quick and clean, you're good at what you do. You don't feel proud. That night, before you leave the town, you sit outside the church. The stars are faint, but the sky is open. The air smells like rain that hasn't come yet. The nun sits beside you without asking. You gave her peace. She said, you don't answer. She told me something, the nun continues. She said the executioner looked sad. She was glad for that. You finally say, what happens to the girl now? She stays with us. We'll raise her, feed her, teach her. You nod. Good. You reach into your coat and take out a small leather pouch. Inside are a few silver coins. You place them on the nun's lap. For her, the nun looks at you. You don't need to. I do, you say. You walk away before she can say more. As you ride out the next morning, you look back once. The church is small, the grave is fresh. But something feels different, like a crack is opened in the stone. Weeks pass, more jobs, more names. But your mind keeps drifting back to that girl, to the coins, to the mother's last words. You find yourself speaking less, even to yourself. Not because you've gone cold, but because words feel too small for what you carry now. One evening you arrive in a large city. You're summoned to a grand courthouse. A man in silk robes meets you. "We have a very special case," he says. "What kind of special?" you ask. He smiles. "It's not a criminal. It's a traitor." You're led inside. You see the man in chains. He's old, noble, proud. He sees you and smirks. "So you're the butcher they sent?" You don't speak. He leans closer. "Do you know how many people I ordered dead in my day?" You nod once. "Good," he says. "Make mine slow. Let the people see what happens to power when it falls." You prepare everything as ordered. But in your head you only hear the widow's voice. Don't forget who you are underneath the hood. When the time comes, you pause. You look at the crowd. You look at the man, and then, for the first time in years, you speak to them. "I have taken many lives, some guilty, some poor, some kind, some cruel. I did not choose who lived, but I chose how they died. And today I choose this. Let mercy be louder than revenge." Then you step back. Gasps from the crowd. The guards hesitate. The noble laughs. "You coward, but you're not a coward. You're just tired and free." You remove the hood. You place the sword on the ground. And you walk away, not to run, not to hide, just to be something else. Maybe a farmer, maybe a teacher. Maybe just a man who remembers. Because justice is not only in the sword. Sometimes it is in the silence after you refuse to use it. You stand now at the end of your long, shadowy road. Not just a road of muddy paths and iron bars, but one of emotional weight, heavy with echoes of screams and cheers, both of which once fueled your paychecks and haunted your dreams. You feel the silence now, more than ever. It's not a comfortable silence. It's the silence of history, quietly brushing over your presence like dust on old parchment. You sit on a wooden bench outside your quarters. The tools are locked away. The block has been scrubbed, though no amount of soap can truly clean it. The crowds have gone home, the square swept, the air unusually calm. Even the local dogs seem to sense that things have changed. You've done your duty today like many days before. But something feels different this time. Word spreads that the new king frowns on public executions. He sees them as messy, outdated, unfit for a civilized society. The court leans more into imprisonment, banishment, and political exile. A judge mutters it might be time to reform the gallows. You know what that really means. The trade that defined your life, the very thing that gave you money, housing, food, fear, and respect, is slipping into the past, like a sword left to rust in the rain. And yet you're not entirely sad. Part of you welcomes the silence. Maybe you can sleep longer now without the smell of blood clinging to your beard. Maybe you can finally grow vegetables that aren't disturbed by screaming neighbors. You even imagine opening a small shop, tools perhaps, or spices, something completely dull and wonderfully harmless. Historians still debate whether former executioners found peace in retirement, or whether they withered under the weight of lost purpose. Firsthand, still, the past clings to you. You dream of gallows, of names you can't forget. You smell iron when there's none around. You flinch when someone calls your name too sharply. Trauma doesn't pack up with the tools. It stays. But peace might too. One day, a boy you recognize comes to your door. Not from your time in the square, but from the town. He's holding a history scroll assigned to report on past justice. He wants to interview you. You say yes. Maybe this is how you pass it on. Not in blood, not in splinters of the chopping block, but in words, in caution. In honesty, you tell him what you did and why and how it changed you. You don't hold back the nightmares, but you don't pretend you were just a monster either, because you weren't. You were a person in a time that asked you to do things most people couldn't imagine, and you said yes because someone had to. The boy scribbles every word, his eyes wide. When he leaves, he says thank you, 2 words. You've heard them rarely. You go inside, warm some stew, and sit by the fire. Maybe you were a villain. Maybe you were a protector. Historians still argue about that too, but tonight you're just tired. The shadows are softer. The air is still. Your axe is gone. Your heart, though scarred, is beating steady, and for once no one screams. Rinward count, censure, wind down, extra sembiwords. So now, as the final embers of this strange journey flicker out, you take one last look back. Not in guilt, not in pride, but in recognition. You walked a line most never dare to glance at. You held lives in your hands, and now you release them, feel the cool night air. No crowds, no orders, just the faint rustle of wind through trees. The heavy boots you wore every day are finally off. Your feet sink into soft earth, no blood, no fear, just dirt and grass. Simple, silent things. Breathe slowly, in through your nose, out through your mouth. Let your shoulders fall, let your hands rest. That weight you carried, it's not yours anymore. The past will remember you however it wants to. That's its job. Yours now is peace. So lie back, close your eyes, picture the fields beyond your door, the wildflowers, the mist curling over early morning hills, the distant hoot of an owl bidding you good night. Let it all fade. You're not the blade anymore. You're not the punishment. You're just a soul, finally still. Sleep well, thank you, Call. You've just finished a long, deep, and powerful journey. This was more than just a script. It was an experience. If you're sharing this as a podcast or YouTube story, here's a suggestion to close your episode. Dermendil, thank you for walking this journey with me. From the gallows to the quiet bench in the garden, we saw pain, fear, and duty. But we also found something else, Durinder, humanity. If this story moved you, share it. And if it made you think, Dom, that's enough. Until next time, sleep well, dream better, good night,